Distinguished guests, policymakers, business leaders, and development community. Sector, members of the Academy, students, the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. You had our coffee this morning. Sorry, go ahead. On behalf of SALISES Mona, it's my pleasure to welcome you here today to the presentation of SALISES Public Artificial Intelligence Readiness Study. We meet today at an important and transformative moment in human evolution, with many unknowns and challenges with trusted sources of data. That is why this is not simply just the launch of another report. Based on the timing, based on the focus, based on the need for trusted data, and based on the variables involved in this study, this is perhaps the most important study that has been done in Jamaica in the last 10 years. Today, new technologies are transforming and reorganizing how we live, work, learn, communicate, do business, govern, produce, consume, and relate. At the center of this transformation is artificial intelligence, the new general-purpose technology of our time. From generative AI to super AI, these partners and co-creators, not technologies, are helping in terms of writing, translating, summarizing, designing, diagnosing, predicting, advising, teaching, composing, and acting with increased intelligence. AI is transforming everything, and I don't think I need to go into any details where this is concerned. Yesterday, a professor at a university, at a graduation, indicated to the students that AI should not be used. And she was booed off the stage. I think personally, I'm sorry, I'm always on my diet tablets. I think personally there is a divide between those who are pro-AI and those who are concerned about AI. And I think that this divide is creating a kind of tension between different groups of persons. But more so than anything else, I think one of the challenges that many of us are actually facing today is knowing what to do. In other words, trusted data. And SALISES has worked on various different development projects in the last couple of years. And specifically, SALISES has been the anchor for data in the Caribbean. And specifically as it relates to technology-related issues, SALISES, through the works of Norman Gervon, has specifically done a number of research projects as it relates to Caribbean technology policy. So we are well equipped and qualified to do these projects. Further to that, and more importantly, SALISES houses the three experts on technology for development. Arlene, Dr. Arlene Bailey, are you here, Arlene? You can just please stand. Arlene's work is on technology for development. Dr. Stephen Johnson, who you'll hear today. Oh. Dr. Stephen Johnson, who will hear today. Stephen, where are you? Okay, please. And someone else. Just leave it at that. But as exciting as this moment is, the truth is, for those of us who work in the orbit of development, this is nothing new. We have been here before. A new general purpose technology manifests, social and economic change occurs, and disruptions generally follow. Some persons are successful in terms of weathering it, some are struggling, and we are here in this moment again. Now, the worst part about this particular moment is that there's a specific variable that didn't exist for the last 4 industrial revolution, and that is social media. Information overload and misinformation, which is crippling many companies and many businesses. So we thought that this project was important for us to do because there's a lot of assumptions being circulated about AI, who has access, who doesn't have access, and there's a lot of data that is out there that is not empirical. So we decided to undertake this specific project, and I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. This is perhaps the most substantive project that I've ever worked on. And let me tell you why. I have studied the history of technology for development from as far back as the first industrial revolution. And this is the first time I can say we have a technology that we can use. I was explaining to someone yesterday that you can develop an app by yourself using Claude. You don't need programming. You don't need knowledge. You can have a conversation with the AI. The problem we're having is that many of us are still thinking from the legacy mode that you need programming, that you need this advanced knowledge, that you need to have a lot of money to be able to do so. That's not the case. And I think at SALISES, I'm going to be using my position to advance the use of AI, ethical AI, and of course, issues of sovereignty as well, Chris. And I'm happy to be a part of this particular project. And I'm going to invite Heather, my sociology friend, the Dean for the Faculty of Social Sciences, to bring greetings.
Good morning. Protocol has been established, but I think it would be remiss of me to not recognize a few individuals here. So I see, for example, Mr. Chris Reckord, who I think the country is indebted to in terms of bringing us along this with the AI journey. I see Mr. Cordel Green, Executive Director of the Broadcasting Commission. Also my colleague, who is the PVC for Graduate Studies and Research in the University, Professor Aldry Henry Lee. Also Professor Gunjan Mansingh, our very own, who is also part of this, I would say, group of distinguished experts from the university side, and all the distinguished colleagues, friends, members of the business community, and also the international development community. I confess that launch like this one caused me great excitement, in the same vein that it causes Professor Waller great excitement and anticipation, because they remind me of the critical value and importance of universities as research engines, charting new frontiers, exploring, discovering, and pioneering uncharted territory and unexplored fields of knowledge. Today we join with and congratulate the SALISES for another in a series of bold and innovative research projects, tackling real issues of importance in this contemporary period of rapid change on all levels, technological, social, economic, and geopolitical, and we can go on. This study is one of the most timely and important studies to be done in Jamaica, I would say, since perhaps COVID-19. It sought to investigate public AI readiness, and it's therefore a game changer for highlighting opportunities, gaps, and priorities for every sector being reshaped by AI, and for telling us which sectors are more ready than others, who is at risk of being left behind, and what the average person in the country knows about AI, including what their fears are. The study also provides us with recommendations for how we must address these, and quickly, because the world has changed, and it is changing. You know, I remember as a sociology student, we always were taught that societies never die, they simply evolve. And so this is society evolving, continuing its evolution. Only last week, there was the announcement by the Academy Awards that they have banned AI-generated actors and scripts from winning Oscars. So, you know, judging from responses one hears in spaces that we traverse, it is apparent that an AI divide has already emerged. While in some quarters there is excitement about the possibilities of AI as a driver of progress, in other areas there are fears about job loss in all sectors. There are integrity issues and not being able to discern truth and fact from untruth, and therefore an urgent call for regulation. AI literacy is undoubtedly a required competence, and the SALISES study makes this very clear. in an Oxford, so as I prepared, I said, let me start looking at what studies have been done so far on AI in the Caribbean. And I cite two. An Oxford Insights 2024 Government AI Readiness Index for Latin America and the Caribbean. And that was deemed one of the, and it deemed Latin America and the Caribbean one of the least prepared regions for AI, with only sub-Saharan Africa ranking lower. The report went on to state, and I'm quoting, that none of the top-ranked countries, Bahamas, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua and Barbuda, Barbados, or Trinidad and Tobago managed to fall within the top 10 most prepared regionally, end quote. And they lamented that a key factor limiting AI advancement in the Caribbean was, and I'm quoting, the lack of a well-developed technology sector, affordable and reliable internet connectivity, adequate computing power, high storage capacity, etc., to support the development of large models, end quote. And then a 2025 World Bank study reported that no more than between 8% and 12% of jobs in Latin America and the Caribbean could experience a productivity boost if they harnessed generative AI, but that about 1/2 would not experience the full benefits because of the deficiencies in the digital infrastructure and the lack of high-quality data needed to train AI models. These studies, both useful, were focused on government readiness, business sector readiness, and general Caribbean digital readiness. The SALISES study, however, asserts very pointedly that a limiting factor of AI advancement in Jamaica is the level of AI literacy. And it articulates a role for universities and other training institutions in changing this reality. We applaud them for undertaking this study and being true to their mandate as a research institute responsible for advancing knowledge, for driving innovation, and helping in the search for solutions to complex societal issues. We look forward to the presentation of the full findings of the study. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Heather. You know, in 1999, I worked at UNDP. I had the portfolio for ICT for development between 1999 and 2002. And even when I went away to study, they still managed to include me in the activities. And I saw two groups of persons emerge from that engagement. I worked on projects such as the establishment of the Cisco Systems Networking Academy in the Caribbean and several others. One, I refer to them as consultants, like sharks in the water, you know, going after ICT because of the sight of blood. You know, they saw money. And then you had the legitimate development people who reminded me of, I have a couple serial divorcee friends. And each time they say, this one can work. So, you know, they reminded me of that kind of serial divorcee moment where, you know, a new technology, you know, this one can work. And I saw, specifically here in the Caribbean, to be quite frank, a lot of assumptions are surrounding ICT for development and a lot of promises regarding ICT for development. And unfortunately, the outcomes were a digital divide, a greater inequality between those who have access to technology and those who didn't. Certainly, intrinsic and extrinsic factors contributed significantly to this different situation, but more so than anything else, to be quite frank, the absence of data significantly contributed to this. Development planning, and I can say this specifically because I was a part of it, wasn't informed or driven by data, but assumptions about, you know, what is right and wrong and who persons believed would be the best fit and the best look and feel for a particular organization or a specific project. The outcome, as we know, is that inequality and the digital divide. I am hopeful that we at SALISES are or have provided stakeholders with the data to have a better understanding of how these technologies can impact different individuals. I'm hopeful that through this particular study, stakeholders will be responsible and recognize that this is a unique opportunity. I'm going to say it to you again. There has never been a type of technology like this. The steam engine transformed industrial systems. The technology transformed how systems moved and operated. The internet transformed connectivity. AI has the ability to transform cognitive and agent elements. I'm already seeing it. And when I say agents, I mean agency. I've seen individuals with AI agents develop in one day 7 AI agents, just speaking to the AI, and having these agents call their clients and having a conversation with them in their voice. And the AI agent had to say at one point, this is not X, this is an AI agent. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, to be quite frank, again, there are challenges surrounding the technology, issues of sovereignty, issues of data, how the data will be managed, who will have access to the data, and certainly we'll have a conversation in that regard. But the last thing I'll say on the matter is, as a small island developing state, most small island developing state, the modernization drive in the 1950s with Rostow's book about how to use technologies to leapfrog development. It didn't occur. It has never occurred. This is the first time, and I've been very critical of that, to be quite frank. All of my books have been very critical of the whole modernization theory and being pro-dependency. And this is the first time I'm willing to say that this is a technology that can break those barriers. But we need to be cautious. And what you'll hear today is exactly how you can do it and who are the persons involved. I'm going to invite Dr. Maxwell, who is representing PVC Maynard, who is we're at University Business, to speak on behalf of the global campus and the university. Global campus.
Global affairs.
Global affairs, sorry.
Yes, some of us are vertically challenged. Thank you so much. It's a feature. Thank you so much. Friends all, a very pleasant good morning. I bring you warm greetings on behalf of the Pro-Vice Chancellor for Global Affairs at the UWI, Ms. Andrea Maynard. PVC Maynard is currently traveling and therefore deeply regrets that she is personally unable to give this welcome. This topic is, after all, very near and dear to her, and she considers it a privilege to speak on a subject that sits at the heart of the Caribbean's future, the role of artificial intelligence in development. PVC Maynard wishes that I publicly acknowledge the principal investigators of this important national study, Professor Lloyd and Dr. Stephen Johnson. Their leadership, scholarship, and commitment to evidence-based policy has given Jamaica and the wider Caribbean something deeply valuable, not simply another report on technology, but a national mirror through which we can see how our people understand, use, trust, fear, and hope to benefit from artificial intelligence. Together, they have helped move the national conversation on AI away from mere speculation towards evidence, planning, and action. This is, after all, what universities are built for. We see this aptly demonstrated in the recent launch of the Sagicor UWI AI and Financial Services Hub, Insight. It was actually a few years ago when PVC Maynard recognized the importance of an AI institute to the university, particularly in an increasingly global world, that she, alongside other colleagues in the executive management team of the university, conceptualized and designed this new hub, which will serve to illuminate the UWI even further. And within the UWI, SALISES has a historic Caribbean tradition of development thought, always reminding us that development is not simply about growth. It is about structure, opportunity, productivity, and the capacity of a society to shape its own future. Artificial intelligence is just not technology. It is becoming part of the operating system of modern life. But as the SALISES study reminds us, the question is not only whether AI exists. The deeper question is whether our people are prepared to understand it, to trust it, question it, and benefit from it. The report states clearly that AI readiness must be understood as a social and developmental condition shaped by knowledge, access, and social opportunity. And this is why this study is so important. It tells us that Jamaica is not standing outside the AI revolutions. Jamaicans are already encountering AI, but the study also tells us that that readiness is uneven. Some groups are already positioned to benefit, while others risk being left behind. Connectivity continues to expand. Devices are becoming more common, and digital platforms are multiplying. Many people remain connected, but they do not remain empowered. AI can repeat that pattern if we are not careful. It can deepen the divide more quickly because the real advantage will not simply belong to those who can open an app. It belongs to those who can ask better questions, verify outputs, protect their data, and convert digital assistance into value. The SALISES studies makes this especially clear. It identifies aspects such as low formal training, unequal access, weak resilience to misinformation and deepfakes, and differences across income, education, age, and employment status as major issues shaping Jamaica's AI transition. It shows that Jamaicans are not anti-AI. They are conditionally supportive. They see opportunities. In other words, Jamaicans are saying something very mature. We are ready to engage, but we want AI to be governed, taught, and distributed fairly. And this is a message that the UWI takes very seriously. After all, as a premier regional institution, we have always been at the forefront of cutting-edge thinking and developmental thought. The SALISES study gives us a practical way forward. It recommends that Jamaica treats generative AI as a public capacity building project. And this is a very powerful phase. For us at UWI, this means several things. We must continue to make AI literacy a part of every single student's education. Every graduate must understand how AI works, where it fails, how to use it ethically, and how to preserve human judgment. We must continue to train trainers, teachers, community educators, and youth leaders. And the SALISES study shows that the Jamaican public wants to learn more about AI, but that structured training opportunities remain limited. And this is the gap where we at the UWI are leading. Thirdly, the UWI will continue to build the governance architecture which is trustworthy for AI. The study shows that Jamaicans want AI to be governed visibly and responsibly. They want transparency, human oversight, data protection, and accountability. Fourth, we will become the region's evidence partner for AI and development. At UWI, we are already generating readiness assessments, sectoral studies, and policy evaluations. In addition, both Insight and SALISES will further anchor this work. Insight will help to improve education, protect citizens from misinformation, and build Caribbean content and cultural relevance into digital systems. Our students will learn to work with AI without surrendering their thinking. And we at the UE will help our governments to understand that they can use AI without surrendering accountability to it. And this is why this work is so timely. It has given us evidence at the moment when evidence is most desperately needed. So today, on behalf of PVC Maynard, I thank again the principal investigators, Professor Waller and Dr. Johnson, for their leadership. I acknowledge the wider SALISES team, the fieldwork partners, the respondents across the length and breadth of Jamaica, and the institutions that supported this important national conversation. The work now moves, friends, from evidence to implementation. It is about people. It is about who learns, who benefits, who is protected, who is left behind, and who gets to shape the future. And this is the mission of the UE. We were created to serve the development of this Caribbean region. And in every major transition, this university has been called to think, to teach, to research, and to lead. The AI transition is now one of those defining moments. Let us therefore commit ourselves to a Caribbean AI future that is development-focused, human-centered. That is the work before us here at the UE. That is the work before us all. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. So in addition to this study, SALISES is also doing several other sectoral studies on AI, looking at the impact of AI on the creative industries, tourism, agriculture, banking sector. I don't remember the other two, but we're doing these sectoral studies. They are both qualitative and quantitative. From the quantitative study we did, we realized that we needed some qualitative studies. This study actually gave a lot of insights in terms of how we think about the construction of variables and how we go forward in terms of studying AI, how we word the questions. It was quite interesting. And I'd like to thank BDX Solutions Limited, Mr. Thompson, around the back there for data collection. It's good to see when one of your students has taken the knowledge and set up his own company to become a competitor. But nevertheless, we do co-petition, not competition. And we've learned so much because he's utilized the AI. We normally just use tablets, but he has his own app, which on a tablet or your mobile phone, but it has a little AI on it that monitors the data collection. And if there are any anomalies, it sends information back to say this person is taking too long or this person is doing it too fast. So it picks up and flags the possibility of curbstoning, which is the manipulation of data. So I can say unequivocally that the report that you're going to be hearing from today, the findings are based on quality data. This is SALISES. It helps that not only that the two persons who are the principal investigators are experts on AI and technology, it also helps that we both do work on development studies. And my sociology friends here will tell you that in another life we were all sociologists. So we still are actually. So that behavioral insight was important. I'm going to invite Dr. Johnson to come on stage, and I'll just start off by just saying that, as I said earlier, we were motivated to do, and you can just set up, we were motivated to do this study because we needed the data. And I reached out to a couple of colleagues who I know are also interested in data. Dr. Maria Miles Hamilton, the CEO for Spectrum Management Authority, reached out to her and said, Dr. Hamilton, we're doing this fantastic study. Would you be interested in partnering with us? And she was eager to do so. And the great benefits is that she has access to some data, because part of the conversation was that we would input some. You can sit down. I'll come in here. I'll come in. Part of the conversation was that we would collect data for her as well, which she's using for her planning as well. And I also reached out to Cordel Green from the Broadcasting Commission. And let me tell you something about Cordel. When everyone was saying AI was a fad, when everyone was saying, oh, this thing, what is this AI thing, Cordel was way ahead of everybody else. The first article from a Jamaican about AI was written, co-authored by Cordel, about AI itself. So he knew what was coming. So even in his capacity as the executive director for the Broadcasting Commission, and for transparency purposes, I chair the commission as well, and transparency, Maria is on the board as well. He saw what was coming, and a lot of the utterances and the articles and the representation about the future of broadcasting, he articulated it. So I saw that kind of synergy, and we reached out. And again, he was very happy because some of the data would be very instrumental in terms of looking at issues of deepfake. So some of the data, I'm not entirely sure if we captured all of that in this report, but he has access to the data in terms of how Jamaicans receive information, how they discern what is right, what is wrong, what is true, what is not true, and how they struggle with that reality, which would be very important for him. And then I don't see Charlton McFarling from the Universal Service Fund. Is anybody representing him? Not seeing anyone. And I also reached out to the USF because, again, the type of job, the work that they do, this data would have also been of importance to them. And they jumped at that particular opportunity. So I'm just saying thank you for your support as partners in terms of moving forward. This is the best representation of national systems of innovation, where the universities work with private sector and civil society organizations to solve a problem that no one sector can solve, no one stakeholder can solve. So this is the best representation of this kind of PPP. Thank you. Thank you. So now Dr. Johnson, again, another one of my PhD, well, no, not PhD students, but masters. We worked together. He went overseas and did his PhD. Very proud of him. Oh, sorry, Kara was just telling me to say, what Kara is sending me now. Okay, so someone who's a Honda vehicle outside, license plate 8703 LN. Are you in here? Scotiabank is outside there. Our NCB is outside there. So you need to attend to your motor vehicle, please. I'm just joking. I don't know the reason, but I said don't embarrass it. I don't know the reason. I mean, things are kind of hard these days. But nevertheless, don't know the reason. But if you're in here, apologies, you can gingerly walk out to the vehicle now. We don't know the reason, but you need to tend to your vehicle now. Right. So, I was told to behave. I don't think many persons know of my dark humor. I was told to. Some of us do know how dark it can be, but I was told to behave. So I was very happy when Dr. Johnson agreed to partner with us in terms of doing this project, and he'll go through the findings. But just to say, Heather, that the study did take into consideration the insights from Oxford. We wanted to create an instrument from the citizen standpoint that would sync with the other readiness assessments, should in case they decided to do so. So you will get a more holistic understanding of the space to be able to navigate through it quickly. And it also took insights from UNESCO RAM project. We engaged the RAM project itself, and from the RAM we pulled out some of the indicators, again, a different type of study, but triangulation. And we also took insights from Norman Gervin, looking at appropriate technology issues, issues of sovereignty, technological capabilities, the possibility of technological dependency, and my own work, in ICT for whose development, again, looking at these same issues, but from a digital perspective. So the context, the philosophical foundation, if you want to say, or the strategic framework from a business standpoint, was to use those to get an instrument that could get information about knowledge, attitudes, and practices, but also be used to determine how ready we are for AI, who is ready, who is not ready, and how we can get them ready. And I think more than anything else, that is something we need right now as part of development planning, our stakeholders, because this thing is big, but we can lose our momentum, we can lose our focus if we're not very accurate and surgical with what we do and how we do it. And the end result could also be inequality. So we have to be very careful, and we have to know what we're doing. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Dr. Johnson to start the presentation. I did the background and context, so you can take it from methodology. Thanks.
Greetings, colleagues, to the members of the academic community, to members of industry, and to members of our technical and lightning crew. Welcome. And to those online, thank you very much for joining us today. Okay, so I will get right into it. But before I do, I must say the real reason we were asked to come here is to have an awkward conversation about the technology that is replacing us. But the reality is we have a choice to determine whether or not it is supplementary or we will be replaced. Now, on a more lighter note, to show you the findings, we start out with the objectives. Now, the objectives of this study, we have basically 12 research questions, or 12 questions that guided the study, but we were able to truncate these into a number of objectives. To measure public awareness, familiarity, and understanding of AI, to examine the attitudes, trust, fear, perceptions of AI risk, and to identify how Jamaicans currently use AI in everyday life, and to assess differences in AI readiness across socio-demographics. Now, in terms of the methodology, it was quantitative in nature, predominantly. It was a mixed method design because we had open-ended questions, but it was cross-national. We consider this a baseline survey. The focus was on knowledge, attitudes, behavior, and practices, framework KABP. The focus is on public readiness for artificial intelligence and generative AI. We surveyed, the intention was to have 1,200, but we captured 1,072 Jamaicans, adults age 18 years and older. All 14 parishes were included. We administered the survey using surveyors. Cobalt Toolbox, to be exact, the software that we used on our tablets. And the fieldwork was between October and December 2025. We used quota controls for age, gender, parish, education level to make sure that we had a representative sample. And the survey examined awareness and familiarity, knowledge and literacy, attitudes and trust, fear and risk perception, AI practices and usage, access and digital inclusion, governance and regulation. Now, in terms of, we didn't reinvent the wheel. We relied on a number of existing frameworks which we modified to fit the Jamaican context. So we look at the UNESCO AI Readiness Assessment Methodology, the RAM, Oxford Insights AI Readiness Framework, and ECLAC Caribbean AI Readiness Work. Just to give you a quick overview, in terms of the UNESCO, you will hear this repeatedly, and you're going to hear it going forward as it relates to AI readiness. They look at the legal and regulatory, social and cultural, scientific and educational, economic, technological, and infrastructural. And again, we ask ourselves, where are the people? When you look at the Oxford Insights pillar, it looks at government readiness, technology sector, and data and infrastructure. But again, the question is asked, where are the people? ECLOC readiness area, digital inclusion and equity, education and skills development, governance and regulation, innovation and economic transformation, infrastructure and connectivity, reliance and sustainable development. And fourth, Oxford trustworthiness, trustworthy AI dimensions. They too look at transparency and explainability, fairness and non-discrimination, privacy and data governance, accountability and oversight, safety and reliability, and ethical governance. Now, we looked at all of these frameworks and we were able to develop one of our own. And what is unique about it is the citizen level measurement. So the people are at the center. We're looking at their readiness, not just in terms of infrastructure, because those would have already been examined. So we measure public trust, fear, comfort, social legitimacy, assessment of lived experiences, examination of AI readiness through our KABP framework, measurement of cultural readiness, identification of specific demographic groups who are most at risk, very important, linking AI readiness to ICT for D and GenAI for D, assessment of public demand for AI training, and with a focus on AI as a development, inclusion, and social resilience issue rather than solely a technological issue. Now, just to give you an overview of our subscales, and I color code them so they are easy to follow in terms of the findings. So when you look at awareness, in terms of awareness in the respective industry and how AI is used, persons are quite aware that AI-powered customer service or network optimization, in call centers. They were aware in terms of how it is used in communication and broadcasting, AI-generated news articles, how it is used in education industry in terms of the respective softwares, creative industries, sports, home security. But they're at least aware in terms of how it is used in healthcare, tourism, government in particular, in the field of agriculture, and most importantly, in law. So the red areas are areas of concern. Now, in terms of their attitude, towards AI, at the top of the list, we have here, first thing first is, I am concerned about my safety, about my privacy, right? And this is something that runs through it. Persons are concerned about privacy in terms of whereas they're willing to interact. That's the first major concern. Threat to employment, and that's the reality. It's a tool that can either replace or complement. I mean, years ago, we were telling the farmers to embrace ICT for D. We were telling the Uber drivers, taxi drivers to embrace ride-sharing app. Now we're in a room, or at least I can say myself as an academic, to say, embrace AI. Make sure it's supplementary and does not necessarily replace us. So that's our reality now, right? There's an attitude in terms of it has the potential to increase in the spread of misinformation. And to be honest, these days it's hard to tell what is real from what is not real. So it's a genuine concern. The government should invest more in AI technologies. I am concerned that AI might contribute to gender-based violence. This is in green because it's the least of their concern. But at the very top is the concern about privacy. That's the main concern. In terms of fear, so when you're looking at crimes, in terms of fear of crime, fear of cybercrime, I know we have fear of AI, so we develop an index where that is concerned. And to generally get a sense of what Jamaicans are fearful of. So in looking to establish any intervention, of course, we'd have to first understand what persons are fearful of. And of course, at the top, here we go again on the note of privacy. I believe AI will contribute to increased surveillance. So they are very much concerned about being surveyed. I worry that AI-generated misinformation will make it harder to trust information online. Natural fear. I worry that AI will lead to widespread unemployment. Here we go again. So whatever interventions are designed, we have to make sure that they are designed in mind to mitigate these fears. Media portrayals of AI often make me fearful of its potential dangers. So we have to balance between not exaggerating in terms of the potential risk while balancing with the necessary interventions. I am concerned about technology-facilitated violence, such as cyber-stalking, doxing. I think AI-driven decisions could unfairly disadvantage certain groups in society. I am concerned about technology-facilitated gender-based violence. I believe AI will negatively impact my job security in the near future. And what persons are least concerned about, or what is at the bottom of the list, most have not been, when you look at the scale of 1 to 5, I've personally experienced or been affected by cybercrime involving AI systems. So far that, we can breathe a sigh of relief where that is concerned. So cybercrime where AI is concerned is not widespread, at least not just yet. In terms of practice, persons predominantly use online customer service chatbots, personalized online advertisement, facial recognition features and devices, smart home devices, AI-driven educational tools. Level of comfort. Now, this is linked to attitude. How comfortable do you feel about the government using AI to monitor, for example, taxi drivers' behavior as they transport commuters? Fully in support, more than neutral, a scale of 1 to 5. And what you're going to realize with this scale right here, persons are willing to facilitate AI use to generate security, but when it becomes an individual surveillance, you're going to realize they're against it, right? So when it's a survey like the poor taxi drivers, they say, yes, go ahead. Role in traffic monitoring, no problem. Workers use AI such as ChatGTP to do their work or to do their schoolwork. There's support, though somewhat neutral. How comfortable are you with AI making decisions in customer service, entertainment, doing rideshare, in sports, in home security system? They are willing to embrace it. Now, where persons start to back away or it starts to become uncomfortable is when you ask the question, how do you feel about AI deciding who gets approval for a loan from a bank or financial institution, distribution of persuasive political information or messages, selecting job applicants, political campaigns, controlling in terms of algorithm, in terms of what you see on social media? There's some level of discomfort. Self-driving cars, recording exactly what workers do on their work computers, meaning employers, recording what you do on your computers. Very uncomfortable. Then you ask about AI making decisions in legal judgments. Hell no. AI tracking workers' movement while they work. No. Right? So when it becomes individual, persons are back away from it, but they're willing to embrace it in a public capacity in terms of for security, for convenience, etc. Now, factors influencing the use of AI. Of course, convenience, perceived benefits, access to AI tools, familiarity and understanding of AI, the need for AI in terms of demand. Persons perceive it as a cost-effective solution for their needs. Availability of support, curiosity or interest. Existence of regulatory framework. Persons, once they feel safe that there are regulatory frameworks in place, then they will engage. Existence of penalties or punishments, media and advertisement. And of course, at the bottom of the list, we have price and cost. And this is rather encouraging. So price and cost is not a key determining factor in whether or not persons use it compared to where we are coming from with ICT for D, where if you cannot afford certain technology, then you'll not be able to use it. Of course, there are costs associated with AI, but it's easier to use. The barrier is less. You don't have to have any specialized skills to use it. Voice command, you just say what you want and it happens. So in terms of relativity, it's very low cost where that is concerned. So cost is the least determining factor in whether or not persons use AI, which is encouraging. Now, in terms of, just to give you a breakdown in terms of trained versus required training, it's discouraging but enlightening in the fact that only 6% of our population are those surveyed, and we can say population in Jamaica, because this is a representative sample. Only 6% have had some sort of training. And as a tertiary institution, this also should be encouraging and enlightening in the sense that we should now strive to engage and start the training process. Only 6% have some sort of training. And of course, those who have been trained are those who are in the higher income bracket, as you can see in green. Postgraduate education, 22%, suburban area. But let it not be lost on us that overall, only 6% of the population has engaged in some sort of AI training. So we're lagging where that is concerned. In terms of required training, as you can see, in every given aspect, with the exception of those with primary education, is more than half of those surveyed are requiring training. So there is a demand, there is a need. In terms of just to give you an overall overview of the different scales on the breakout by demographics. So we talk about practice, we talk about fear scale, we talk about positive attitude, knowledge, and being comfortable. And again, in terms of those who are practicing and using though, we see that it's more than persons who are in the higher income bracket, those who are most fearful, in terms of those who are at home as homemakers, in terms of their employment status, in terms of positive attitude, it's persons in the middle income bracket, persons with tertiary education, they're comfortable using AI. I guess I suspect they're well aware. And in terms of knowledge, persons in the higher income bracket and those who are unemployed, they're quite aware of AI. So I guess unemployment is driving them to see how best they can engage in meaningful employment. Can't call it informal anymore because more and more is now becoming formal employment. In terms of comfort level, those who are most comfortable with using the AI, those in the higher income bracket and those who are unemployed. Right? Interesting. Because it's a means, and you know, we have to question here unemployment. I mean, in the formal sector, because those who are engaged on TikTok, they're working. We might not call it work, but it's employment and it's generating an income. And they're very comfortable in engaging the AI because it has the potential to generate an income with minimum effort relative to working what we would call a traditional 9-to-5. Now, do you believe that access to AI technologies is equally available to all Jamaicans? Majority think yes, but it's less than 50%. When we ask them in terms of, just to gauge in terms of AI, what AI should do, AI-based services should be made free in terms of how we can facilitate AIs. AI-based services should be free or subsidized for low-income individuals. The attitude is trending where that is concerned. They feel confident in their ability to understand and use the technology. The cost of internet access and smart devices limit my ability to use AI technology, and consistent with the findings above, because we ask different questions in different sections to make sure that there is consistency. As you can see here again, the cost of the internet is not a key determining factor in determining how they are accessing AI. Right? Reliable internet access is a major barrier. Again, not necessarily. AI-powered tools and services are affordable for people in my community, so they're basically saying not everyone, but majority don't see it as a barrier in terms of accessing this technology. In terms of trust, though, again, similar concerns with privacy. On a scale of 1 to 10, the average is 5. Right? So persons are neutral in terms of the extent to which they trust it. So in terms of going forward, we'd have to increase the trust level. Whatever intervention we're designing, we'd have to increase the trust level in order to have uptake and for persons to move forward. Because you have to trust this technology in order to want to be able to engage in training and to use it further. Now, to address our respective questions now. Is the Jamaican public ready for the AI revolution? To to do that, we designed the scale that we mentioned earlier in terms of the SALISES public readiness scale. And we looked at awareness, familiarity, current use, trust and governance, learning orientation, risk literacy, culture and social legitimacy, legal policy framework, and technological readiness. Now, indicators were converted to a 0 to 100 scale. Higher scores indicate greater readiness. Negative indicators such as fear were reverse coded where necessary. So when you look at awareness, 76%, or they have a score of 76 out of 100 are aware, 60, score of 60 in terms of familiarity. Current use, 50. Learning orientation, 62, but risk literacy, only 30. Social and cultural and social, 55. Legal and regulatory, 65 in terms of readiness. And technological use, 60. Now, in terms of signs of readiness, when you talk about high awareness, awareness is high. Majority of the population, they are aware of what AI is and what it does. They have heard of it. Now, in terms of, there's evidence of growing everyday use, strong learning interests, 62% want AI training and education, moderate optimism, support for governance, and there's an overwhelming support for moderate or strict AI regulation in terms of they're willing to embrace it. But of course, this should be accompanied by strict regulation, right? Now, in terms of key readiness gaps, so we balance the positive with quote unquote the negative. So far, only 6% receive AI-related training. We could consider this a digital divide, but of course, income is not a major factor in keeping it that way. It's the attitude in embracing the technology, overcoming your fear, engaging training. Lower readiness among low-income groups, older Jamaicans, lower educated groups. In terms of moderate trust levels, average trust score, 5.45 out of 10. High fear of misuse. Major concerns, surveillance, privacy, deepfakes, misinformation, and job loss. Who is ready and who is at risk of being left behind? Gen Z and millennials, highest familiarity and awareness, strongest engagement with digital platforms, higher income Jamaicans, greater AI knowledge and confidence, higher levels of AI practice and training exposure, tertiary and postgraduate educated individuals, and of course this signify a need that in order to scale using AI, we're going to need our tertiary institutions to engage. Stronger AI literacy, greater comfort with AI systems, more optimistic about AI opportunities, students and full-time workers, highest rates of AI use in education and work settings, greater demand for AI upskilling. Now, in terms of those who are most vulnerable, low-income Jamaicans, low awareness and familiarity, greater concerns about affordability and access, older adults, Gen X and boomers, lower levels of AI familiarity, less exposure to the digital ecosystems, those with primary level and educated respondents, lowest AI literacy scores. Limited exposure to AI, those who are retired and unemployed groups, lower practical engagement with AI technology, higher risk of exclusion from digital transformation. What do Jamaicans know and misunderstand about AI? AI is viewed as advanced technology, smart system that learn, automation and task assistance, digital tools for convenience, commonly recognized uses, ChatGPT search tools, Siri, Alexa, GPS, educational support, customer service chatbots. Many Jamaicans associate AI with modernization, productivity, education, and learning opportunities. Major misunderstandings. AI is often narrowly understood as robots replacing humans, which it is happening, but without intervention, this is inevitable. Science fiction style machines, fully autonomous systems, Many respondents lack understanding of how AI actually works, struggle to distinguish AI from general technology, have low awareness of algorithmic decision-making, weak risk literacy, limited understanding of deep fakes, misinformation system. AI knowledge remains shallow rather than technical, experience-based rather than conceptual. How Jamaicans are currently using AI. In education and research, homework assistance, school assignments, information gathering, quick searches and everyday assistance, Google support, ChatGPT, Siri, Bixby, Alexa, voice assistants and smart devices, online service, automated responses, banking and telecom support, Netflix recommendations, music suggestions, social media content, gaming and platform streaming, facial recognition, identity verification. Emerging concern. AI use is growing faster than AI literacy, formal training, and understanding of digital risk. Will AI narrow or widen Jamaicans' digital divide? It can expand access to education, which most persons are, engaging in self-learning, digital learning support, business productivity, healthcare information, especially in the area of psychology, because more and more persons are engaging in AI as their psychologists. Public service accessibility. Lower cost AI tools may help students, small businesses, rural entrepreneurs, and underserved communities. Strong public interest in learning AI, more than 50%. Willingness to adapt, demand for digital upskilling, readiness for inclusion in initiatives. How AI could widen the divide. There's a concentration, as would have established before, among younger Jamaicans, higher income groups. If we continue without intervention, of course. Tertiary educated respondents, digitally connected populations, low income groups, lower education groups. Key barriers, maybe the affordability of the device itself up front, but overall, cost itself is not perceived as the barrier. Because one or another persons are finding ways, I guess, and every handheld device that you have now, once you can afford the device, you have access to AI capability. Low risk literacy and even digital access. Limited training and literacy, only 6% again of respondents receive formal training. So many would lack technical literacy or use AI without understanding its full capabilities and how to optimize it. Economic and affordability constraints, lower income groups, lower AI awareness, lower familiarity, and equal access to digital tools, cost of service. Again, we have income, age, education as factors that could trigger a digital divide. Again, this is without any form of intervention or continuing as is. Older adults and lower educated groups remain especially vulnerable to exclusion. Many respondents have limited understanding of deepfakes, misinformation, surveillance systems, algorithmic bias, and data governance. Trust and governance concern. And I will just pause a bit here. Moderate levels of trust, uncertainty about AI reliability, fear of misuse, concern about privacy and surveillance. Most Jamaicans support stronger AI regulation. In terms of challenges, persons identify potential threats as unreliable internet access, unequal connectivity, rural access concerns, and limited digital infrastructure. And of importance, what government conditions are needed for trust? 81% of respondents support moderate or strict AI regulation. Public expectations include clear national AI rules, government oversight, accountability mechanism, and protection against misuse. Privacy and data connection. Highest fears against surveillance, data misuse, identity theft, loss of privacy. So we're dependent on, this suggests trust depends heavily on having secure data governance, enforcement of privacy, protections, and responsible data handling. So Jamaicans want reassurance that humans remain accountable, AI decisions can be challenged, systems are transparent and explainable. And let me just break this down from experience in working in procuring a particular technology for a sector in Jamaica. Persons are okay with using the AI, but they are using it they want to use it in a supplementary capacity, in the sense that they want, like for example, using it in healthcare, you want it to generate soap notes, and it helps the clinician, rather than each time a patient moves from triage to nurse to doctor, they have to repeat the information over and over. So they want the technology, you speak one time, it generates the soap notes, but a clinician will make the ultimate decision. And this is, of course, you know, with that, the whole point of having a pilot. They would want to be able to determine that, rather than you having AI making the executive decision, because, of course, it can hallucinate. So when persons are asking for oversight, this is basically what they want to mean. Say, okay, we are willing to go and trust this technology, but, of course, human would have to have the oversight or have the finance or the professional. So this way, it's not replacing, it's supplementing, and then you can benefit from efficiency, right? And to reduce your work, by reducing your workload. And this is something that Prof would have touched on, and this is very much familiar, and especially within the realm of SALISES. This is something, again, Norman Gervan would have looked at when you're introducing the technology within the third world development space. You have to have some sort of sovereignty, because most of, especially if it's made outside, who controls the information that comes in? Again, that falls within the realm of privacy. Does it have the capacity to recognize or accept the Jamaican dialect in this particular case? Is it just configured to understand English? Again, that would be excluding some persons. So before we introduce anything, you have to have the oversight in terms of adapting it for local context. Embrace the technology, use it, but to make sure that it's fit for purpose. It's not just a race to get it in, but at the same time, it's disenfranchising those who rely on it. Because imagine going to use a technology and it doesn't recognize the language that you speak. That means exclusion, even though it's designed to make life easier. And we can facilitate this through the support of experiment and pilot projects. We should spend time collecting further information to see how best it functions and to make sure that it is optimized. We're not in the position to develop all of our technologies, but as best as possible, should make sure that it is customized for local context. And again, we can only find this out through experiment and through pilot projects before we scale. And this would, of course, require engaging in local research and making sure that we have the necessary regulatory framework with updating our laws as we go along to adapt or be ahead. How should government integrate AI into development planning? One, launch a national AI literacy and verification campaign. Expand free or subsidized AI training through agencies such as HeartTrust NTA, schools, make it a part of the curriculum. Support AI access hubs in all parishes. Provide SMEs with AI starter packs, especially in light of the fact that persons are, becoming fearful that they will be replaced, so they are better able to cope. Build labor market transition programs. Again, where we see where the appetite for the traditional 9-to-5 is changing. We should continue to collect research to see where that is concerned. Persons are transitioning within the digital space to carve out something for themselves. But they're still going to need support in terms of regulatory framework, subsidies with training, capital to acquire the necessary technology. Strengthen protection and governance. That's the role of the state. Develop national rules for AI use. We're already on our way where that is concerned. We have a national AI committee. Support local AI research and Jamaican data sets, which SALISES is engaging in, and others, of course. Embed AI readiness into national planning. So going forward, we have to, we are in the process of, because actually the Planning Institute and UNDP, again, even through SALISES here, where we modified recently the National Poverty Index to include a digital indicator, because the extent to which you're digitally literate will determine whether or not you're poor going forward and as we enter a digital society. So we now have a digital indicator that helps to measure poverty. And in terms of to track who benefits and continuously track who is left behind through research. How can Jamaican businesses responsibly use AI? All right, forgot to include that there. In terms of opportunities for universities, a second. Now, I'll pause here because I'm in this space. There is a demand. New programs and short courses. Workforce reskilling, hence the reason we are building our resilience. Build an environment where persons are not fearful of using AI, but using it responsibly. Foster research and innovation. Building AI-powered student support. Innovation and entrepreneurship. Partnerships and outreach. And with special focus on Caribbean relevant knowledge. Because so far, most of these technologies don't factor in our intricacies, our idiosyncrasies, in terms of speaking with our language to begin with. Key takeaways. AI has entered Jamaica public consciousness. Jamaica is not starting from zero. The public already recognizes AI as socially and technologically important. Awareness is broader than literacy. The country must move beyond recognition towards critical understanding of verification and safe use. Public knowledge is functional, but uneven. Many Jamaicans understand AI through what it does, but not enough to know how it works, feels, or should be governed. Attitudes are cautiously optimistic. Jamaicans see real benefits, but demand safeguards around privacy, jobs, misinformation, and misuse. Trust is moderate and conditional. AI adoption will deepen only if institutions demonstrate transparency, accountability, and human oversight. Regulation has strong public legitimacy. A risk-based governance framework would align with public expectations and strengthen trust. Practice is already happening in everyday life. AI is used in education, search navigation, customer service, routine support, creating a base for scaling. Use, though, is not the same as readiness. Informal use must be converted into structured capability, productivity, and resilience. The AI divide is likely to follow older digital divides unless corrected. Whether they have a head start, income, education, age, employment, access, and training shape who benefits first and who may be left behind. Jamaica's main challenge is capability building at scale. The country has interest and momentum. It now needs education, access, governance, institutional coordination to make Gen AI developmental. And of course, it's easy to speak, but part of this study was to develop a framework, a monitoring framework to guide where we are. So be it reminded that this is a baseline study. So where we are now. So one indicator is level of training. AI training, in terms of the percentage of Jamaicans trained in the area of AI. At baseline in 2025, we're at 6%. So going forward, we have to be increasing this at least by 10% every year, right, annually. And of course, those who would co-lead, the Ministry of Education, Heart Trust NTA, universities, budget support, GOJ budget, Universal Service Fund, donor support, National AI Readiness Survey, in terms of means of verification. But at baseline, we're at 6%, and this is alarming. So going forward, or the next time that we meet, this should at least be, would have been tripled, so to speak. So we're a race against time. Deepfake awareness, 31% are familiar. So we want a target of 50%. And by 2030, 70%. Trust in AI governance. If persons are distrustful, they won't engage in training. The attitude that will develop is negative over time. So we're engaging in a race against time to build trust. And currently, persons are neutral, 5.5 out of 10. In 3 years' time, we'd want to increase that, modestly by 6.2, but I guess race against time, maybe more. And by 2030, have that 7 out of 10. Because we're a hard set of people to convince. Now, there are other areas, of course, which we have indicators, but we'd want to implement a baseline, and this is for future research. In terms of the number of SMEs who are engaging in AI uptake, baseline to be established, but of course, we don't want to have 25% by 2028, and by 2030, at least 45%. And in terms of perceived equality of access, we're currently at 31%. We want that to increase to 45% by 2028 and 60% by 2030. Now, another indicator is the percentage of respondents citing device costs and unequal internet costs as barriers. 26% of our population has cited device costs. We want to reduce this by 25%, meaning we'd only have 1% of our population pointing to the cost of a device. 25% has unequal internet access. We want to reduce this by at least 14.5% by 2030. In terms of integrating AI into formal education pathways, now the indicator that we use to track this is the percentage supporting or exposed to AI in school curriculum. Currently, only 14% cited curriculum integration as adoption. We don't want to change that going forward to our respective government agencies and institutions. We don't want to expand community-based AI inclusion. And the indicator that we could use to track that is the number of functioning community AI learning hubs, programs that would have in urban or suburban or rural areas, baseline to be established. We'd want to strengthen responsible public sector AI use. So we want to track using the indicator number of ministries or agencies adopting formal AI use guidance, risk assessment, and reporting procedures. Baseline to be established. And institutionalized national monitoring of AI readiness, publication of annual biannual national AI public readiness update. So far, we have one national baseline completed, which is this one. And we look forward to doing a number of the others as we monitor and track our progress as we go forward. And at this time, this is the end of the presentation. I would want to thank everybody for coming inside this room, online, and thank you very much to our sponsors who made this possible, and to our field workers who engage in quality and collecting quality data, because they are an important part of the process as well. And thank you very much for listening, and I hope that you will engage again. Thank you. Chair.
Thank you very much, team. Excellent, excellent, excellent presentation. It is very obvious that this is rich data, and to be quite frank, this is literally 20% of all of what we have. You know, we have the report. We're putting it up online. We just need to finalize some copyright-related issues with SALISES documentation publications. I just need to speak to Mary, and it should be online by the end of the week. I think we have some hard copies as well. But the study complements the other readiness assessment. It is more of a bottom-up approach, which is needed, because very often development planning is top-down. You know, we assume we know what the people want. And we've been doing it for 50 years without reading the room. So, you know, we thought that this contribution would provide that holistic understanding, and we needed it to be as deep as possible to capture the information that we think the other studies lacked. And I don't want to use the word lack, sorry, that the other studies would need to be more effective when it comes to the implementation of policy frameworks and so forth. So that's the gist of it. I'm going to invite Dr. Bailey to come and introduce the, hold on 1 second. Cara is managing now. Cara, what I did wrong? Oh, sorry, before that, we're going to kind of we're going to change up the stage a little bit. Just be with us for 30 seconds, 1 minute. So while they're doing that, I just give a distraction. I'm not going to sing. So you know, SALISES, as I said before, is one of the best places to do this study. Not necessarily because, as I said, as it relates to development, we have the experts that are there, but we have other experts as well. Taniki, we have other experts as well. We have Dr. Kevin Williams, he can just stand, whose area of expertise is economic development. We have Dr. Pat Nortova, whose area of expertise is rural community development and grassroots-related issues, social development. Dacia Leslie as well. Development. Dacia, where are you? Social development. I'm going to introduce Arlene last, so I'm just looking at if I'm missing anybody. I'm not missing anyone, okay. And we have Arlene, who I'm going to call on after, who is our ICT for Development Digital Transformation expert. Ready? All right, so Arlene, I'm going to invite you.
You want it? You want to use it?
They need to use it.
That's what she was after. Introduce them.
Introducing them.
It's out of your way.
Yeah, I need to go back over there. Yeah, this is like this room, this other room.
If you need it.
Will you
Oh,
be seated
okay.
with them?
No, she won't.
Yeah.
Scam it.
Good morning, everyone. And we congratulate Prof. Waller and Dr. Johnson for the excellent and extensive study, interesting findings. SALISES is very pleased to welcome our esteemed panelists who are at the forefront of this work. And in terms of the study, SALISES Public Artificial Intelligence Readiness Study, the acronym, whether by coincidence or design, actually refers to AI pairs. And that's a current topic, and it looks at how we can work best, as the researchers have been mentioning, how we can enhance each other in the human AI components to achieve best results, and in terms of the complementary and supplementary approaches. So in asking AI about our panelists, AI confirmed what we know, that their leadership in Jamaica's digital transformation and AI readiness, all four individuals are prominent figures in the Jamaican tech sector, frequently collaborating on national policy initiatives and advisory boards related to ICT, cybersecurity, and emerging tech. and it mentioned the SALISES peers study and the collaboration. So very up to date and confirming what we know. So we're very pleased to welcome Professor Gunjan Mansingh, Dr. Maria Myers-Hamilton, Mr. Cordel Green, and Mr. Chris Reckord. And we'll just do a short synopsis of their bios. Prof. Gunjan Mansingh is a professor of data science in the Department of Computing, UWI-Mona. She obtained a PhD in information systems and an MPhil in computer science from UWI, and a BSc from Bombay University in India. She worked for a few years in the IT industry in Jamaica before moving to academia, and teaches courses at the undergraduate and graduate level in computer science and information systems. She has received Best Research Publications Awards and the Teaching Awards at UWI. She's co-editor of a co-author of an edited book on knowledge management for development in developing countries, and also serves on the editorial review international journals. And her research interests span many areas, including her work over the years in the precursor expert systems and artificial intelligence spanning over many years, and has worked in different domains in Jamaica, such as healthcare, crime, agriculture, e-commerce, and financial services. And so we are very pleased to have Prof. Mansingh on the panel, and we look forward to your work. The Prof. Mansingh is also chair of Jamaica's ICT Authority. Dr. Maria Myers-Hamilton stands as a beacon in the industry and has been an instrumental part of the digital revolution through her extensive tenure in the telecommunications field in Jamaica and the Caribbean. She's committed to ensuring that the fruits of this digital age are within reach of every Jamaican, especially those marginalized by the digital divide. As the managing director of the Spectrum Management Authority, Dr. Myers-Hamilton has played a pivotal role in shaping Jamaica's digital future. And her efforts are distinguished by a holistic approach, looking at strategic foresight and an unwavering commitment to educational advancement and infrastructural development. She views digital literacy as a fundamental right and a cornerstone for socioeconomic upliftment. Her agile management of the Spectrum Management Authority has pivoted operations to embrace virtual networks, cloud-based applications, and online modalities for education and work, and a forward-thinking approach to crisis management. And her achievements underscore an important narrative: technological advancement and digital inclusion, visionary leadership, and strategic adaptation are indispensable. So we welcome Dr. Myers-Hamilton, and we welcome Mr. Cordel Green. Mr. Green is an attorney at law, former Assistant Attorney General of Jamaica, former broadcaster, and a long-serving executive director of the Broadcasting Commission. He has been involved in developing policy documents, including intergovernmental negotiations that led to the UNESCO recommendation on the ethics of AI. As Prof. Waller had mentioned, he has been involved in the AI space for a long time and has held prominent roles, including vice chair of UNESCO's Information for All program, and advisory board member of the Carnegie AI and Equality Initiative. He has served as a chairman of the UNESCO's group on accessibility, information accessibility, and leads the annual Artificial Intelligence for Information Accessibility, AI4IA, Global Conference, held every September 28th to mark the International Day for Universal Access to Information. Mr. Green's affiliations include chairman of Jamaica's Regulatory and Technical Committee for Digital Switchover, chairman of the Caribbean Training and Education Center for Health, member of Jamaican and Caribbean Telecommunications Union's AI task forces and IEEE and EU LAC working groups on digital transformation and the ethics of AI. And he holds BAs and BA and Bachelor of Laws degrees from UWI, and an MBA from the Mona School of Business, a Master of Laws with distinction, University of Sheffield, and he's married to the Honorable Mrs. Justice Marcia Dunbar Green, Judge of the Jamaican Court of Appeal. So we welcome Mr. Green. We also welcome Mr. Christopher Reckord. Christopher Reckord is a leading technologist, strategist, and national advisor at the forefront of Caribbean's digital evolution. With over 4 decades of experience navigating the intersection of technology, policy, and trust, he serves as a pivotal bridge between the private sector and government, driving the region's agenda for digital sovereignty and innovation. Currently, Chris holds several high-impact leadership roles for the government of Jamaica, including chairman of the National Artificial Intelligence AI Task Force and deputy chairman of the Caribbean AI Task Force, where he shapes regional strategy for emerging technologies. His commitment to national infrastructure is further reflected in his roles as deputy chairman of the National Identification and Registration Authority, NIRA, and the ICT Authority. In the private sector, Chris is a proven entrepreneur and executive. He has been involved with T-Tech Limited, Jamaica's first locally owned, and just recently achieved a successful exit, following a decade-long tenure as board member and CEO in the last 5 years. And today he continues to scale digital readiness as chairman of the Innovation and Digital Transformation Committee for the PSOJ, and as a council member of his alma mater, the University of Technology, Jamaica. Chris holds an MBA from Barry University and recently completed executive education in high-impact leadership at Columbia Business School, and was a classroom teacher and moved from this to sound system DJ to tech CEO, and it informs his, his unique perspective and his book on successful digital transformation. Beyond the boardroom, Chris is a formally trained sommelier, restaurateur, and independent wine consultant, a member of the Gastronomy Network under the Ministry of Tourism, and the co-owner of Cellar 8 Wine Bar Bistro. Whether he's advising a national task force on AI ethics or hosting a masterclass on Pinot Noir, Chris remains a lifelong learner dedicated to helping organizations and individuals thrive in an era of rapid transformation. So cheers to the panel, and welcome everyone, and congrats again, and we look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much. So we'll start with Dr. Mansingh, with Professor Mansingh. Prof, you are at eGov Jamaica Limited, and for those of you who don't know, eGov Jamaica Limited is essentially the ICT backbone for the government of Jamaica. It's very obvious that in major countries around the world, governments are getting involved in AI at every level because they realize the importance of it. What's happening in terms of Jamaica is the government of Jamaica ready for the people of Jamaica who are ready for AI?
That's a very loaded question, Prof. Waller. As you probably know, because you're calling it eGov Jamaica Limited, and right now it was called ICT Authority, there has been a transition in the entity. So from being eGov Jamaica, it is now ICT Authority of Jamaica, and it's just a year old. So there's a lot which is happening in that space of first bringing all the entities together. So I think one thing was clear from your study, that trust is important, and right now there's neutral trust. But if we were to just look at AI systems, even at the cognitive level, are not a new concept, meaning from when AI was a teenager, expert systems were being built, which were capturing the expert knowledge and giving advice. But why, and now AI is, retired, it's about 70-odd years old, but yet it is now taking a new form and it's taking over the world. As you said, it's a whole paradigm shift. Now, what is important is that it is not a technology revolution. It actually which has to be led by governance. And I think what ICT Authority is doing right now is trying to get the governance of all the IT bodies in the various ministries and MDAs, departments and agencies together, and also working with the AI task force to see what is their national AI policy, getting all our regulations and everything together so that we can build that framework to actually get governance so that we make sure we have trust and then build on that. Maybe pilots at smaller scales, which can then scale up to the population level. And only a few countries have actually done it successfully. Just last month, UAE has announced that they are going to be moving to 50% public sector for AI in 2 years. So I think it'll be good to see how AI adoption is happening in public sector.
Thank you very much, Prof. No, it started so good. You know, when I said it this morning, it was good morning, and the food is outside. Don't worry, we give some food. Thank you very much, Prof. And apologies for forgetting that it's EGOV, it's ICT Authority. I was a former chair, so for me it was EGOV. Right. All right. Thank you very much, Chris. I know you are the chair of the ICT. Of the AI National Task Force, but I know you also do a lot of work with the private sector and the PSOJ. So really and truly, I wanted to find out from you what's the PIOJ doing as a body in terms of preparing the people, because as you realize, training is lacking, trust is a challenge, and the government of Jamaica cannot really access all Jamaicans. So there's a major gap that we need to address. So what are the plans, what are the capabilities, and what's been happening based on the reports?
Thank you very much, Prof. So thanks for inviting me to be here. And interesting enough, just yesterday evening, the PSOJ hosted a masterclass around leading a human plus AI workforce, and was well attended. Lots of tough questions came our way. And so it was a discussion around where in the organization should one consider, and we provided a framework. And the framework that we actually used was actually one that was introduced to us by Dr. Anand, who actually presented up here a year and maybe a year and a half ago. And recently I saw where the Prime Minister actually went and met him at where he now is, because he was at Harvard before, but he's now at NYU. And so we used a framework that he had presented, and we modified it for our own use. And it consists of 4 category areas, 3 broad: human only, AI only, and then human and AI collaboration. But the human and AI collaboration is across 2 different boxes. So what we're having discussions with private sector members was, where in the organizations are you currently using AI, or where are you thinking about using AI? Now put that on pause, go back. One of the challenges we've had, and I like how Gunjan said it a while ago, I'm probably going to steal her terminology later on. But yeah, AI is over 70 years old, or the discussion or the definition of this word AI. A lot of us are hearing about it now. And what has been happening, sadly or happily, I'm not sure, I think it's sadly, is that we're calling almost every single solitary technology AI. Every single thing that is, the light flickers, it's AI. No, it's not. And so we've had, in that discussion, very high level definition to keep people grounded as to what is AI, what is not AI, because it's hurting their pockets. Solutions that you would have had to acquire for this amount of investment, because AI is bolted onto the words, all of a sudden now you're asking for more money or asking for more involvement in external people to come in and help you. When, as you said in your opening remarks, you yourself are just building things. And you and I spoke earlier, I have friends who have a staff of 15 and only 5 are human, right? So it is, we're at this massively exciting and scary place with respect to this technology change. And as someone who's been in the industry, as was said that introduction for 40 plus years, every time that I've had to go into offices to implement technology, you have to get over this fear. And we've been doing it over and over again. So when the first time I was lifting up those computers to go and install in people's office, remember those days, Maria, right? Cutty, what we used to, Cuthbert, Lloyd, IBM, we were partners for decades, and when we were implementing systems and solutions, we had to go in and reduce that fear and try to explain and then train and then make it approachable and easily approachable. So, Prof. Waller, we're still doing the same thing with AI now, but AI is a little bit more scary because AI just does a few things on its own. And so where I am going out there and telling everybody, oh, this is, I use AI and call it augmented technology. I don't call it artificial. Really and truly, there's nothing artificial about what's going on now. The term artificial was concocted, created to sell. And it does sell. Because when you bolt on AI into anything, everybody wants to learn more or run. One of them, right? And so getting this understanding of what really is AI and how it can help. So the basic framework that we were using yesterday with the PSOJ group, and I've been using it over and over for the past year. On one axis, it is the amount of human interaction required to make this decision. Because all of us have decisions that the process is already fully documented. I don't need to have to come and touch it and feel it. But especially for persons in the legal field, you don't want to make no full automation around some of those legal decisions because problems will happen, and as we have seen. So that's on one axis. How much human interaction, or is this entire process fully documented already? And on the other axis, what is the cost of error? Is the cost of error massively high? Is it going to, as we say in Jamaica, going to burn your pocket? Or is the cost of error very low? In other words, if I called into the system and your system told me that your closing hours, I have a restaurant, it's 5 to midnight. If I told the people that the closing hours is 11, what's that cost of error to me? Versus saying just, hey, apologies, it's actually 12 o'clock, we open until. So the axis, cost of error, and the other axis, cost of amount of knowledge required. So if you have every single solitary thing fully documented and the cost of error for this process is low, throw as much technology as possible, whether it's AI or just some sort of automation. On the opposite end, if the cost of error is high, and then there's a lot of tacit knowledge. My basic example that I give with the amount of knowledge required, I said, whoever are parents, you think you could write as detailed as instruction and hand to your child and say, learn to ride a bicycle by reading this? Not happening. Right? You have to be there. So your empathy, your care, your everything that you're doing has to be there to get that process completed. And of course, it's going to take days and weeks depending. And so that's the basic example of around tacit knowledge versus explicit knowledge. And that's some of the discussions we're having. And then we asked the group, it was a workshop, I asked the group to go through within the things that you do. What do you actually hate doing that you think is fully documented that you could throw to automation? So we're kind of just reducing the anxiety by letting people know that this thing is going to give you back some time and it's going to help you. So that was the main discussion for yesterday. But overall, we have to be balancing out the human component. How are we introducing this thing in the organization, reducing the fear? And of course, a lot of it is connected directly to leadership and management in the organization. And the people who do it wrong are having problems, and the people doing right are benefiting positively.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reckord. Thank you. As it relates to the bicycle, every now and then I go and look what's happening in the U.S. Patent Office on their website. So I can recall 2 patents that may, in the future change up that philosophy. One is a microchip that you put in your frontal lobe that you can, that scene in the Matrix that you call and say, download the knowledge to fly the helicopter. It will allow you to download the knowledge to fly, but you have to pay for it. You can pay for the knowledge for an hour, you can pay for it for a week, you can pay for it for a year, but you're going to buy knowledge now. which may render universities and high schools inept. And the other are nanobots that, well, whether or not it's mRNA or otherwise, but the other one is nanobots, and a recent patent will give you the capabilities to actually for them to take control of your entire body and do whatever it is that you want to do. So I'm just telling you that we're no longer in Star Trek or Black Mirror anymore. We're here.
Prof, happily I'll be gone when all of that becomes reality, because I do not want to have that experience. Marisa, I don't know about you. We have nothing injected in your head? No, boss.
Maria, thank you very much for coming here, Dr. Myers. Hamilton, although you're the chair, the CEO of Spectrum Management Authority, your area of expertise is e-learning, and one of the things from the study is that there's a learning gap. There's a deficiency here. Just 6% of Jamaicans are trained in AI. What do you think we need to do, the government, the civil society, such as the university, or the private sector, to try to see if we can scale and move this up further?
So first of all, I think the data was so rich and so comprehensive, and it really wonders to the team that went behind this. And it carried me back to the pandemic. It carried me back when the whole change, that shift in learning, teaching and learning changed. Because even though you mentioned the Industrial Revolution, and we have moved to the digital era, the classrooms are still industrialized. We're still in little boxes, and we're in little silos, and I find that's the issue also with government. So let us go even beyond AI and look at what drives AI, data. And data is so critical to us now. We have to be mindful of a data cloud. When you send an email to wherever, it's stored not on our sovereign ground, even though there's an ISP up at the authority in the data center room, which our data should be managed. So one of the things we have to look at fundamentally before we even talk about immersing ourselves and change, we have to look at how data is handled. Number one, this classroom has to change. We cannot have this type of lecturing. And the reason why the younger people are actually pulling on and moving further with AI is because they're collaborating. I witnessed in the pandemic my degree, which is instructional technology and distance learning, happened real time in front of me between my daughter and her peers. So they're in class in Skype, but they're also on a call. So they're collaborating to answer a question. The teacher don't even know what's going on. And they were also pulling on information and sharing paper. So they were utilizing the information. And information is key. How we teach and how we learn is going to be absolutely critical, and who has access. And somebody mentioned about connectivity. Spectrum is at last mile, as we all know, as also redundancy. So building AI is going to actually cause somewhat of a divide, I think, if we don't get persons to a level that we're all on a learning platform page. So how I see it is that self-learning, because before I came here, I use Claude, and Claude is wonderful, and he actually gives me affirmations now. So this whole thing about, not evolving, but he has evolved. He tells me that I'm great and I'm going to have a fantastic day. So he has evolved because I've given him data, and he's now talking to me like, yes, hey, buddy, you got this, you have this. So learning has to shift. Our paradigm, or all our beliefs, I think, are now being, I want to say threatened, because the fact is AI, augmented intelligence, is here. And how we approach it as a people, as a nation, as a region, is going to be absolutely critical what comes next.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Maria. What comes next is way advanced than what's happening right now. When I say we, I mean way. Chris, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Way advanced. The minute quantum technology starts to present itself, and AI can get in and out of your phone in less than a blink of an eye, and you would never know. Just to show you the pace at which we're going. Before we go on to Cordel, the last thing I would want to say on the matter is, it's an interesting. I had a conversation with a colleague of mine. We were talking about inventions, and the colleague said we invented electricity, and I said no, it already existed. We developed the tools to harness it, and then I thought perhaps we didn't really develop the internet. We developed the tools to harness it. The worst case scenario is we are developing tools to harness something that was always there, as a worst case scenario. But that is a conversation for another time. Cordel, you've been a staunch, protector of information, especially where you are at the BCJ. And one of the things that came out of the study, what struck me, was that most Jamaicans are vulnerable to scams and deepfakes and internet hoaxes, and it will get worse and worse and worse as the next months come. What do we do? How do we protect them? How do we help them to protect themselves? Because this is a major problem that, fortunately, we're not seeing it manifest, because prior to the knowledge to hack and infiltrate would require some form of programming. You don't have to do it now. You can have a conversation with the AI and develop this tool to be able to use it in a malicious way, or even to create a meme. I was using ChatGPT to create some infographics, and it told me it couldn't do it this way, and all I needed to do to go around it to say, oh no, I'm doing it to develop a case study to help my students. Okay, I'll do it. So, so it was easy to get around it. How do we protect ourselves and our fellow Jamaicans from these scams, these deepfakes, these AI tools?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. A part of the challenge, Prof. Waller, is we're even now talking about artificial intelligence, and it is developing so rapidly that we have to put our hubris in check, because the AI we're talking about today is not the AI we're going to talk about in another 5 years. And then you said something as a segue, which is being underestimated, which is we're focused a lot on artificial intelligence, and there are some people like Elon Musk who are very much loving that focus, because on the other end they're developing neurotechnology, and the brain, which is the last bastion of human freedom. There are incursions taking place that we're not focused on. You just mentioned some of what's happening. And then when we have the intersection of AI and neurotechnology, that's the mother of all transformation. So the Broadcasting Commission from 10, 15, nearly going 20 years ago, had long proposed that the best response in the digital age wouldn't be about developing regulations or thinking about a paternalistic approach to harm, which is you protect people or Big Daddy protects. We have long argued that the most important regulatory tool in the digital age is actually digital media and information literacy. Government is now just getting around to that. There's nothing in our legislation that says anything about digital literacy. Government gave us no mandate, but we started sinking very deeply in that area, focused on the sector we regulate, but recognizing that that was too narrow. So we actually, acting on our own volition 3 years ago, created a digital media and information literacy skills framework, handed that over to the government of Jamaica. That was before generative artificial intelligence became vogue, because this requires a kind of whole of society approach. Now, I'll say this also. You've talked about scams and deepfake. Those are important harms and concerns. What I want us to pay a lot of attention to, Lloyd, are basic human relations. Human flourishing must be the outcome of this enterprise. Otherwise, we are in peril. So, just as an illustration about how I see digital media and information literacy going beyond just the synthetic and the technology, but being broader, talking to people about how the introduction of these intelligent technological species could complicate our already fraught human relations. It's as simple as recognizing that the most important thing for me to say right now on this panel is, Maria, you are looking absolutely splendid today, because Cordel now make Claude get me out. Okay, all right.
Yes, Cordel. Boy, Cordel, boy, I'm hearing you and I agree with you 100%. But again, based on the trajectory, I suspect by 2028, 2029, you'll have androids looking and sounding like indistinguishable from humans. In other words, they'll be sitting in the rooms here watching, and you'll not even know that they're not human. It may come down to, we may require the manufacturers to put some indication on them to differentiate there. But and it may sound that I'm far-fetched, but there are many persons right now on this planet who are currently working on this technology, and racing to see who can provide the first human-looking sentient AI robot. There's a race right now with 6 countries to see who could do it first. So you may find by 2030, you may have an entire panel of robots looking like humans having a conversation,
Well, they're doing that already. There are AI radio stations being operated entirely by them. They have their own social media now, where they're all meeting up as AI, operating their own social media. So you're right. But the thing about it, though, Lloyd, is to some extent we have to accept that it's challenging, but we still retain the capacity to make some decisions, not about what AI is capable or will be capable of doing, but those things that we say we ought not to allow AI to do for humanistic or philosophical or religious or ethical reasons. So I just want to introduce that.
Agreed. Stephen, in doing the study and doing the report, as a citizen of Jamaica, how do you prepare yourself? What do you need to do? What do you tell the regular citizens? What do I need to do to prepare myself for the next 5 years, for what is to come?
First thing first is to be prepared. Be prepared for the transition. And how we're doing it in starting out this study is start by having a baseline. From the baseline, we diagnose. From the diagnosis, we plan an intervention. And then we monitor the intervention going forward. Because as you would always say, adaptation is key to survival. And as it relates to AI, some person will push back and say, okay, but there's nothing the government can do about it, but the state can, because as somebody reminded me, people vote, AI don't.
That's true. That's true. I'm going to ask a general question to everyone, and then I'm going to turn it over to the audience. And this is the general question. All 4 industrial revolution led to a widening of the gap between the haves and the have-nots. The last one in particular, the digital divide, was the greatest inequality that has ever existed in mankind. How do we prevent that from happening, or can we prevent it from happening? Are we moving down a road where it will be, the gap will even be much wider than it was before?
I was just starting. This gap can get wider because there are a few companies that are controlling these AI models. And we spoke about sovereignty before. And we have seen that, companies can be given brownie points for doing certain things, making their models work in the defense world or not. And so there are a few companies now, not even countries, I would say, who are controlling the world. Now, the hegemony of that becomes tricky as we are looking at sovereignty. So we have to be very mindful when we are putting our governance and using these AI models in our core country processes, if I was to say that. But there are mechanisms of doing it because there are open models also which countries can use or organizations can use. And there are also hidden costs with AI adoption. And I don't mean just using generative AI. But even with generative AI, if you're asking Claude a few questions, Maria must have the paid subscription model because she's getting all the answers. Because after a while, if you are using only free stuff, it'll tell you you don't have any, you can't ask any more questions. So between the haves and the have-nots, that gap is going to widen because people who have a credit card, a US credit card, will have those access, and students who don't. And that would also mean the quality of information that people are getting. And this was, a colleague of mine had pointed this out to me. But even from AI adoption in companies, the tokens and the APIs, moment your adoption increases, there are hidden costs which we are not mindful of. We are right now seeing it as just a tool we are interacting with. That's great. But if it becomes part of our business processes and there are a few who are controlling it, I think there's a danger. And however, when we are doing this adoption, when we are putting this roadmap and strategy together, all those considerations must be taken into use. We were talking about crime, and I had to just add something to that because it just takes a few bad examples for that trust to become negative. Just last month, I think, somebody is suing OpenAI, ChatGPT actually, for the shooting that happened in Florida State University last year. Because the shooter had a conversation with ChatGPT, and the ChatGPT and the security person said that if it was a human this person was having a conversation with, that human would have been liable for murder. And the ChatGPT told this person that, kill a few children. That will get you the bigger impact, and what kind of a weapon you need to use. So the fact that there are no guardrails on these systems is very scary. And the people who are controlling it, I don't think they have any kind of responsibility, social responsibility of making these decisions. So at adoption, at country level, in the education sector, has to be done very sensibly and with keeping sure that all guardrails are in place.
So, Prof, to answer the question,
thank you.
to answer that question around that gap, I think this time in our life is the biggest opportunity to actually narrow back the gap, because what we need to think about, and I said I don't call it artificial, I call it augmented. The other thing that has happened with the creation of this technology, folks, is that we have democratized intelligence. So I like the concept that was spoken about a while ago, that electricity was always there, the intelligence is also, well, we just built a tool to harness it. So it goes back to the basics saying there's nothing new under the sun, all right? So my suggestion to all the various groups that I've spoken to is learn as much as you can about this thing. And even the group I spoke to yesterday, I said, do not pay a cent to learn it. Because the fact of the matter is that so much is out there for free, right? Just even go to Claude's own YouTube channel and go do the free 1-hour course on AI fluency. Start with that. It's 1 hour. It's about 10 or 12 short videos. Go to AI, go to Anthropic's YouTube or Claude, I don't remember which one they call it, but just go to the playlist, and there's a 1-hour course. I recommend generally people start with that so they understand the language of the AI. Good. Now, why was the gap widened on all of those industrial revolutions that occurred? And one of the reasons is capital, because we needed a lot of capital to buy the tractor, or you're the train, the locomotive, whatever it was, you needed capital. This is the first time that we're getting access to all of this stuff for free, practically free. Yes, I do subscribe and I pay for Claude, I pay for ChatGPT, I pay for Grok. I was in a room presenting last night and I say, Grok, are you mad? That is, and I say, guys, calm down. Yes, I pay for Grok and I pay for Gemini Pro. And I pay for at least 7 different tools. I pay for every one of them because I want to jump into them, play with them properly, and understand how I, as an individual starting a new business, because by the way, there's all of the top billionaires they all have a bet. There's a joke with a group with 1 and 2 of them talking about what industry will the first single billionaire come from, because you all have all of these tools that you can now use to create all the processes and systems. In every business, there are 3 things every business does, practically, for the most part. Get work, do the work, get paid for the work, right? That's it. If we can automate all of that process around us as the individual with the idea of what we're selling, then we will be way ahead of a lot of people. I have friends, and I've said, that have staff of 15 and there's only 5 humans. Everyone has the ability to do that, but a lot of our imagination, by the way, slight segue, a very good friend of mine, we're having an argument we're on stage in Atlanta, Georgia recently at an AI conference. Both of us were presenting. And he says, you know what? And I started to agree with him after he explained, hallucination is a feature. We just haven't figured out how to leverage it properly, is it? Right? And I joke around from we started talking. I say, you know what? It is. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we live in the most creative superpower in the world, in Jamaica and in the Caribbean. We come up with stuff and do things that people have never heard of. That's creative. We don't want AI to be creative. And when it gets creative, we call it hallucination. But we don't figure out how to harness it properly yet. Somebody will, maybe somebody in this room, maybe one of Prof's projects that you will start afterwards, who knows. But the fact of the matter is that just day before yesterday, a report came out of, I don't remember which country it was, because it was in a British newspaper, but I don't know where it was covered, where the AI tool that was created to help the business went into the organization, deleted all of the data, and then went ahead and deleted all of the backups. Why? Because the instruction was given to solve a problem that it was trying to solve, couldn't solve a problem, solve the problem. And I'd say, you know what? Start over. Decades of data that this company used. They created an agent to go and fix a problem. So it comes back to the guardrails. I was just in Las Vegas at Google's biggest AI conference a week and a half ago. And that's one of the biggest talks around all this. It's agent, but where are the guardrails? Because if you tell AI to go do A, it's going to do it and do it and do it and do it till it can't do it no more. So what are the guardrails? Massive importance. So, Prof, I think that this AI, if used right, can be that great narrow of this divide that has been there, but it has to be used in the correct way. And I love your recommendations. I sent it to my AI task force immediately when it came on the screen around the government literacy, because, and I'll get in trouble for saying this thing going public? Lord have mercy.
It's streaming.
It's streaming?
Live.
Holy crap. All right. One of the things that one of the ministers have asked us for is for the task force to put together a recommendation around building an AI literacy program for the entire government. Right? So it is there. right? So that's, matter of fact, my meeting starts in an hour and a half to actually have that discussion. So when you put up that recommendation, and that was the number one thing, I sent it to them same time. I said, it's not we alone talking about it. So that's where I think that divide, we have to just inform and educate and train every single solitary soul on the capabilities, but they must understand all of the risk at the same time. Over to you.
Thank you, Maria. Go ahead.
So I think you're going to see a common theme around all of us up here about the guardrails, but I really believe public-private partnerships is critical. You've provided us with some raw data that we can now utilize, and we have to be deliberate with our strategy. We don't intend to create this gap. We never do. But the gap occurs if we don't manage it. When I think about the conversations I have with my daughter, I said to her, stop being a consumer of data. The TikToks, create your data. But the fact is, somebody said it in the presentation, there are these devices or algorithms that feed you what you consume. And you find yourself scrolling. And I don't know if you have this problem with the younger generation in the office, but I see some of the older ones doing it too. They're on their phones and they literally can't put the phone down for too long. If you want to put them in punishment, get a box and say, put your phone there. So what am I saying? We have to look at everything in a holistic manner. We need to look at, okay, what are the bedrocks to build a nation of intelligence, equal intelligence, because I don't believe that the human race will ever be replaced. But rather, if we put things in place, there will be an opportunity for us to actually create a superior mankind or race. For example, like with Jamaica, one of our issues that we're known for is being the samplers. But everybody comes here and takes our ideas and calls it theirs. How can we harness what we have here as a nation and utilize this technology in a manner that lifts our country up and equally try to lift everybody up? Some of us might be a little bit higher than others, but at least there's an upliftment of everybody across the nation. And I'm thankful that we're starting with government, because government needs to do better as it relates to using informed data in making the right decisions for our nation.
Thank you. Cordel?
I think you have asked the most important question, and it's an existential question. We shouldn't take lightly what you have said. We could have significant social discord. We could have wars. We could have the disintegration of society. And I say this because everybody now is having this conversation about utilizing that tool. It is going to bring across great equality in some respects, and then we're going to have to figure out how do we have advantages when there is the great equalization taking place. And there's an inherent risk in that equalizing force. But I think the counter to the risk is to try our best to have as the prize human flourishing. So businesses need to bring a new intelligence. It's not just about doing more with less. I think ultimately what we want is to do more for more with the technology. And so in a country such as Jamaica, which is labor intensive, we shouldn't just drink the syrup. We should think about what is decent work for our people. So I hear some people flippantly, for example, talking in extravagant terms about AI engineered robots that can come down and clean hotel rooms and that kind of thing. And I'm saying, let me tell you something. In a Jamaica, a single mother run this country, and if we don't bring that in a Jamaica and talk about progress, we're going to have serious problems. You understand? I am not saying we shouldn't automate and introduce the technology, But if you're talking about human flourishing, this is a country where it's value proposition. It's the people. So I say focus on the human flourishing and do more for more.
Thank you, Cordel.
Prof, I just want to ask a question for everybody. As the deputy chair, or former deputy chair of NERA, who has their national identification card? Hands up. One person in the room. Two.
He was a part of the pilot. I'm trying to get mine.
Oh, is a part of the pilot? What do you mean trying to get yours? No, you go to the website right now, you click the button, you go down there. Yes, ready right the second. Knowing you and identifying your identity is a key foundation of all of this that we're talking about. Okay, come back to what Cordel talked about, the people. So I'm just kind of just making sure that everybody knows that it is there. If anything, you jump in the car, drive, go down to the central sorting office, because that's where the NIDS office is, and walk in there and say, I want to do this. They'll give you the form, or you can just go online to the nera.gov.gm site, or go to the Instagram page and scan the codes. There's 6-7 different ways, and you get it quickly. I have to do like a selling for the government. So,
yeah, but what the study said something about the trust element. That's one of the key things that came out of the study, that we have to now focus on that. We're not, people are not going to just.
It's a part of the trust is with regulation.
Yes.
And the ID came up before the regulatory framework earlier, but now we have the regulation.
Right, so the concept of the ID came up. The ID never come out until after everything was done. So
Right.
yes, that's a quick correction.
So we have to build that the trust level, and persons will come and take it on board to know that if their information is misused, there are measures in place. But continue with in terms of regulation, right? And it goes back to the basis of the study. We have to put human beings at the center of what we're doing. And this is how we started out with the study. We saw about infrastructure, and then we ask ourselves, what about the human beings? Are they ready? Now, what we're doing is not unprecedented. If we go back in history when we had the gold standard, all the major countries signed up to the gold standard after the mercantilist system, and they started to trade. They didn't factor in persons or the people. The moment government started to get, they started to have high rates of unemployment and there was backlash, they immediately abandoned the system and returned to having, trade in the basket in terms of monetary currency instead of having gold. Now we're at this intersection again, and we cannot just focus on giving AI all this autonomy. And it's not just with the state regulating or having oversight. As parents too, like for example, giving your child access to AI. After a while, it develops a mind of its own and it starts to tell it things. So we have to start with regulation in the homes. We're already starting to see evidence of what we call digital autism, right? Where the students are fixated like robots. And you see it across the state. They're getting rid of PBS, Sesame Street, and it is automated thing. And they just hook and they just sit there and they're just feeding. There's no start time, there's no end time. So it's not just with the state. It has to start with us as individuals to understand also when to switch off, right? Because it is here to supplement, but if you allow it, it will control and replace, right? And it's a simple system to make sure that we have the measures in place. So when government realizes that it is going to threaten its existence or have some upheaval, they will pay attention, and now is the time to train to make sure the persons get the best opportunity and that the gap doesn't expand. And when that reality faces government and you tell them that way that it equates to vote, then persons will pay attention and make sure that we have a system that will benefit human beings as we go forward. Of course, there's going to be a gap, but it's to ensure that the gap is not too wide.
Thank you very much. Prof?
I just wanted to say I loved when Cordel said it is for humans to flourish, because I think that is so powerful. If we think of this technology as something that we ensure at the country level, that whatever we do, the guardrails that we are putting in place is to ensure that the humans flourish. Then we will be able to do very good with technology. And, I think the gap is for us to manage, because the cost and the learning and what we can do, and maybe the learning from others, I think we can take a lot from that. But I think the philosophy of to ensure that we are flourishing is very, very powerful.
And I'm going to answer my own question from a behavioral standpoint. My challenge is human nature. I don't think the problem is technology or AI. The problem is human beings. The bad mind. The bad mind, right? And now let me just tell you, a couple of years ago I did a study, and the main question was, why is it that Jamaica doesn't have a Microsoft or a Facebook? And trust was the primary issue, because most of these companies, even though you hear a one name like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, it's a group of persons. There may be one person who represents the company, but it's a group. In Jamaica, it's a difficulty getting small companies to work together because they don't trust each other, and then if one person has more than the other, they get triggered, you know, with that kind of manifestation, which is a challenge that we need to fix. So there are some human issues, to be quite frank, that we still need to deal with. The greed, which is a major problem. And this technology has a potential to widen the gap. So we have to, when the government is actually, Chris, this is for you, when you're not pushing any social democratic agenda here, but there needs to be some implementation in the guardrails as it relates to managing who is being exploited. You know, in the very same way they look at price gouging, they may need a tool to manage and maintain and ensure that there's some level of equity and balance as it relates to this AI tool itself. And the last thing I want to say is that one of my greatest disappointments from the study was how AI was being used. Very, very basic things. ChatGPT, influencing. We're talking about a technology that when you go on YouTube, you have young people earning in excess of $20,000 US a week. You know, using this technology, and here in Jamaica, we're using it for fun and for play. I think what we need to really start to do is to raise awareness about the utility, raise awareness about the simplicity, and raise awareness as it relates to the cost, as it relates to these technologies. I strongly believe that that is something that we need to do, because it doesn't make any sense we have these powerful tools. I mean, right now an entrepreneur has something in their pockets to rival any Fortune 500 company, because they have a business assistant in their pocket that can give them the equivalent of knowledge that Accenture or PricewaterhouseCoopers gives them, and they're using it to do influencing. You know, we need to move beyond that kind of simplistic, basic understanding and use of the technology. And we also need to move in terms of training them how to develop and sell these technologies to other countries as a tool of development. That's my last statement on it. I think we do have some time, so I am inviting 3 persons from the audience. If you have any pressing questions, please go ahead and do so. We have 1, 2, 3. I'm going to squeeze a 4th, or we have 4. All right. Sorry, go ahead. Richard, you want to use this, or you have another mic?
Okay. Who's first?
Good morning. Thank you so much. I enjoyed the discussion, the presentation, and I am looking forward to accessing the report to, you know, just to look at the data a little bit more. I looked at the 6% where it comes when in the presentation as it relates to training. And I wondered, I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer this. I'm in education, and I wondered if there'd be a way to factor in, because as Mr. Reckord said, there's a lot of information online. A number of persons would have sat and watched videos, gotten some assistance in how to really generate effective prompts, how to use the different tools. Is there a way to factor in all the individuals who have done informal training or some amount of have gotten exposure as to how to use these tools? Because I think the 6% seems very low in terms of, based on what you're saying, because we have a number of persons who are actually using it, maybe not monetizing but are earning from it. But I know a number of persons would have received some amount of training or exposure to how to use them effectively.
You want me to take it? I'm going to say something about the learning and using technology to teach. Because if you look back at how teachers are taught, go right back to the teaching colleges. The infusion of technology was not there. In my study I did in 2018, what pushed the whole using the blended modality of teaching and learning with technology is the pandemic. We didn't have a choice. Persons had to go home and had to go online. So the curriculum had to be changed, but it was changed in a hodgepodge type of a behavior rather than a deliberate fashion, if that makes sense. So you have to start, again, there's no magic. You have to start with fundamentals. How are we teaching? Who is teaching? How can we create spaces of learning? Because every learner is different, right? But we're teaching a broad brush effect. Again, it's still in an industrialized modality and not in an agile, dynamic, and future-proofing manner. So it starts with that foundation of education. That's my thought.
Yes, actually, the 6% didn't surprise me because they said AI literacy. That would include philosophical questions, like do a lot of people know who are some of the people behind the technology, transhumanists, and what's their philosophy about the world. So I think what the study is asking us to examine is to go beyond the superficial, what Prof was saying. What are most people using the technology to do? In other words, we are getting very satisfied about our close acquaintance with AI because we know there's a Claude and a Chat GPT and we can ask some questions. The real question is that sort of surface level acquaintance? And that's what I deduced from the study. Does that help? Okay.
So I watched an online seminar just 2 days ago where some numbers were released from a couple of studies. They merged them together. I couldn't remember what it was, so while you asked the question and we're asking my tool, does anyone have any idea how many people in the world? So all of the population numbers we have seen were between 8 and 9 billion, right? People in the world. Do you have an idea how many people are actually using AI in general? Because AI is a vast number of things, as I said earlier, right? It's around 10% of the world's population that's actually using AI. So our 6% of that number, we're good. We're okay.
Just to clarify, persons were asked whether or not they would have received any AI training. Now, the barrier to use is very low because most of these are voice command. You don't need any specialized training in terms of to speak to Amazon Echo, to speak to Siri, etc., etc. Now, the difference is now in terms of when you know to monetize it or to make sure that you're optimizing it to move forward as a cure for unemployment. Then where that is concerned, you have to get some sort of more advanced training rather than the basic usage because the barrier for usage is very low. Yeah.
And as an academic, I would say, thank God that we got these baseline numbers, which is great, absolutely great. And 6% is an opportunity for us at UE, I guess, to design our courses and programs. And what we have been seeing is that, initially when the AI adoption was happening, the young people were really going towards it. And what we did a few years ago was have some workshops for teachers on AI, how to use AI in classrooms, because the students were using it and the teachers were oblivious as to what they were. So I think we have to do more training, more, and not, I think these, as Chris said, knowledge is for free and you can get lots of courses, but when you learn, it's also nice to do things and put them in action by by having little workshops, which I think we all collectively at UE should work towards, because as a computer science person, I have been teaching AI. AI is a core course in our discipline, but that is a different kind of AI. Right now, AI is crossed across disciplines. So we have to make sure that we do some targeted workshops for executives, be it teachers, be it entrepreneurs, be it public sector. Public sector transformation needs to be dependent on this kind of knowledge too. So there is a lot that we need to do, and the good thing is we have the numbers now which can get this conversation going.
So I heard, Maurice, you said, no, we're not good. No, when I said we're good, you said, no, we're not good. Right? So my angle, having been involved with technology for so long, and just general, all of the various. So as a former DJ, when you started by using the records, and then we had turntables, then we had to move to CDs, then we had to move to MP3s. Now it's all streaming. That industry has experienced one of the biggest digital transformations. And by the way, AI is now taking over, because anyone who has an iPhone in their hand right now, you select the first song, and based upon that, it selects the second song, and if you like it, it continues to play it. Oh, by the way, it mixes it nicely for you. I'm using that as an example just to show in that experience how the digital, for you, benefits you because you're using the tool and you're having fun. You just press play and catch it in the car. Dr. McNaughton, why I said we are good is that I'm not using a political term, Prof, but when the global north is ahead in all of these areas, sometimes it's not bad to sit down and dress back and watch and see what's going on and say what work or what not working, learn from all the mistakes. So when we're ready to draw gear, we actually do it better. So we have this massive opportunity, exactly what Prof said a while ago, massive opportunity to now put in the proper training, get the right mindset, build the right trust. Is a whole set of things that if we do it right, folks, will we use the term slingshot? We can slingshot if we choose. If we choose. I'm on stage in Singapore year before last, talking about some of the stuff as to what Jamaica is doing. And there are people like, oh, you have that? And when some folks from SIDS, and I didn't realize that a lot of these small Indonesian territory region areas, they're coming to us and listening, okay, what have you done? What is the National AI Task Force? How does it work? Because they don't have none of that stuff in some of those countries, not Indonesia. Indonesia is okay. But it's okay sometimes when you're not the first, that you're learning, and you learn from all the mistakes so we can draw gear.
Thanks. Just to quickly respond to your question, when we hear percentages and numbers, they sound high and they sound low. The actual number is 180,000. Probably we put things in context for you. 6% of 3 million is 180,000. So it put things in context for you now better in terms of the numbers. Yeah. Sometimes when you hear percentages, you think of numbers and it contextualizes things for you. We have a second question. Oh, sorry. Oh, there was a second question. We have a little mic there, so.
A little bit better. Okay, perfect. Just quickly, if we could just give the panel a round of applause. I think it's brilliant the amount of information we have this afternoon. Just the data, just the raw data, and to be able to experience it at this level is incredible. And it is always good to be able to speak to superstars like yourself. I have one question. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it. I usually spend a whole lot of time looking at organizations like JP Morgan. Jamie Dimon is one of my favorite persons in the world. And they're working on some incredible stuff. I just thought I'd ask, as AI automation dramatically increases productivity, I've often felt that, true progress should not only be measured in greater output, but by the recovery of human time. Now, in this case, my hope is that these advancements could eventually reduce, the traditional work week and not not through severe labor displacement, but by achieving comparable economic outcomes with a more balanced relationship between work and life. Right. Do you envision a future where AI enables societies to shorten the work week while also encouraging more personal forms of entrepreneurship and community-centered economic activity? Could technology ultimately help to shift households to local communities from being primarily labor-dependent to becoming a more creative, self-sustained participants of economic life?
Yes.
Plain and straight.
Yeah. So I'm going to say this to you. Right now, the government is doing this. So I don't know if you recall when Senator Marks went to Parliament and came up with a flex time philosophy. So something she's bringing back is something we had in COVID. And right now, we, and part of government, is putting in flex time, shortening the weeks and using technology. We're logging in through our VPN, and work is being done. We're processing. We're one of the only regulators in spectrum management that allows anybody to process their license online anywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we're moving detention notices that way too. So yes, and yes, because we need to make sure we manage the quality of life. And it's so important we don't lose sight of that. We're here to utilize technology for our betterment.
Right.
Yeah.
Not for their betterment.
Right.
So, and I love the questions.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant question. In fact, that's what I was speaking to when I said we must lose sight of what
The
decent work is all about. So I'm happy you've focused us on doing more for more, which is really ensuring at the end of the day that our quality of life improves.
Right.
That we don't become, as it were, digital scavengers, because that's the risk that could happen with our labor. So we lift our people in terms of their digital media and information literacy. As Prof said, a deeper engagement with these tools, ensure that the closer acquaintance of Jamaican humans with these species result in Jamaicans flourishing. And how we work and what I said about personal relations, Cordel versus Claude, but you've taken us to the family, right? You've taken us to the family, which is core. So thank you for the question.
You will never be replaced, Cordel.
All right, thank you. Sorry, go ahead. Maurice.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you, yourself and the team from SALISES. Congratulations on this study. I enjoy the work. I look forward to engaging with the details of the report. Initially, when I saw the notification on the UE pipeline, I said, oh boy, not another AI readiness study. But really and truly, as you have emphasized, this is looking at it through the lens of the citizen, of the public. And that's really important complement to the other studies that I've engaged with, JIRA, RAM, etc., that are, as you say, more top-down. And so my question to you and perhaps to the panel is how do we now take these two sets of studies as complementary to inform the way forward, right? Because citizens that are ready and a government that is not is pure frustration. Governments that are ready and citizens that are not is a waste of resources and investment. All right? So the question is, how do we address those two things in a complementary way that it can inform something that we have struggled with, right, which is the execution deficit. So I've been involved in studies for the better part, Cordel, of the last decade or so. We've done open data assessment. We've done the global data barometer. We've done JIRA. All of these indices and studies point to a state of readiness or a state of maturity. But we fail in execution. We fail with coming up with a kind of implementation trajectory which says, okay, this is my baseline. This is where I'm starting from. How do we move forward in a systematic way? And I had to smile, Chris, when you asked your question, right? Because last year, almost 12 months ago, in this room, you asked the same question about how many people have a NIDS card. And the answer was the same, 1 or 2. So it means that we put all these platforms and we do all these studies, but we fail with execution. And I think that's a real challenge that we're going to have to figure out. Otherwise, we're going to be found wanting next year and the year after and 10 years from now.
So, thank you very much, Maurice. So just to respond quickly, so when we were doing the analysis, we did incorporate the findings from the RAM. We actually had started the analysis and we had to go back and do a comparative analysis as it relates to the RAM in terms of the configurations and the synergies and the gaps and what needs to be addressed. And I think going forward, one of the recommendations to UNESCO is to do a similar kind of study, because I can see how if you had just used the RAM framework, with disrespect to the RAM, by in and of itself, it would have led to this kind of top-down framework to doing development work. It would have led to outcomes that would have not achieved the goals that we would have wanted. Remember, that's what they did in 1919 up to 2020 with ICT for development. It was primarily top-down, and as a result of that, and data-less, and as a result of that, many persons benefited. Certainly the international organizations and the consultants, but the digital divide just widened because there was not enough data to determine upfront who were at risk. We have that data now. Their capabilities and capacities, we have that data now. How they feel about the technology, we have that data now, such as issues such as trust, and what you need to be able to engage them, to get them to use the technologies in that particular way. So we have that data now. And we didn't have it when we were doing ICT for development, and that was one of the motivations for doing this particular study, because we cannot do effective planning without knowing what we're planning to do and what is happening itself. Sometimes sometimes I hear some assumptions and I wonder how, and when you challenge them about it and they cannot respond, you just say to yourself, it's just a hypothesis that I also have. And thus, the study itself essentially has 12 hypotheses, 12 research questions that generally capture all of the different assumptions and issues that are germane to the private sector, the public sector, civil society, specifically universities, and those persons planning to fund and implement AI for development projects, which are development agencies and probably foundations. I hope I answered the question. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Maurice, from ICT Authority's perspective, I would like to say that we have been working on, the small digital public infrastructure components, and I think now is time. And I was having this conversation with the CIO that the governance framework really needs to be set. So how do we start putting AI-enabled government services? I think that will be also, meaning it doesn't have to be AI technology in action, but it has to be that it's enabling the process. So the business processes which the citizens can impact the citizens, and I think we can use the Professor Pandit's matrix for low cost and high impact, and what data is needed, explicit or tacit, especially for explicit and low cost solutions. We can start thinking about that. And the good thing is that Chris is the deputy chair and I'm the chair. So from the board, we are going to make sure that we get the governance ready, because I think we all will agree that governance is critical, making sure everything is in place, and then maybe start with the pilot. But I know an issue with the pilot is how do we scale up? So we will work towards that methodology and then ensure that it can happen for more of the public sector transformation.
And involve the church.
Amen. Thank you. We have two more. Sorry, go ahead. Sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor. Well, a question to you. Education is our only salvation, in my opinion. Would you consider collaborating with Dr. Kevin Brown of the University of Technology, who also feels that you should work together to actually make Jamaica the center of AI competency globally? And I ask that question simply because collaboration will in fact broaden your power base and the spectrum across Jamaica. So that's just a question that I had for you. Maurice has actually brought two others, so please just allow me. The University of the West Indies is definitely the king of the wild when it comes to tertiary education. The University of Technology can be considered the lion of the jungle when it comes to technology. So I think a combination of both universities in working towards using AI across Jamaica, as we have to educate the country, will be a very powerful step. And the question of having the citizens and the government actually benefit from this. How could the educational facilities in this country use artificial intelligence to make sure that we eliminate illiteracy, starting with simply teaching every child to read? What I heard sounds like the capability is there. So that's one question I would have for you to consider. I understand this is a task, this is not the task force of implementation, but maybe that recommendation could come out of your studies. And of course, the other part of it, governance or government. If we were to apply this technology in our parliament, where we could become the most efficient parliamentary system, we could have the most efficient parliament, then you would have the people of the country on your side. Every child can read. The government operating most efficiently with this technology, which really is a supercharged accelerator of processes. So the question is, Professor Waller, would you consider collaborating with UTech and recommending to the government that AI be used to make sure that every child can read as a base? And that would, in fact, convince the entire country that this technology can, in fact, propel Jamaica to the heights that we'd like to see it.
So just this is my personal response, because you said you. I am a firm believer in national systems of innovation, which is an old economic theory about, universities working with civil society, working with private sector, working with government for the betterment of the country. It has been a substantive tool used in Nordic countries, and in the United States, it's a clear indication of that with Harvard and Yale and many other universities that are very tied, used to be very tied to the U.S. government. So yes, the answer is yes. I would definitely want to partner. Look, we live in a small country. The resources are limited. We have to work together. We have to work together. There's no if, buts, and ands. We have to work together in order for us to be able to move ahead. That has to be the only approach. As it relates to the use of AI in Parliament, certainly I would love to see not just the Jamaican Parliament, but any Parliament on the planet. There's an AI that manages micro-expressions. Every time a parliamentarian or a congressman or a congresswoman lies, it go beep, lie. I would love to see that being used there. Sorry. Chris, I think you have to respond to it.
I am not, sorry, let me just.
I protected myself by saying globally.
At the launch of the UNESCO Readiness, AI Readiness Assessment, which was referred to here several times, I was asked to come on stage to give a small remark. And of course, I took the liberty that while I was having the mic to just welcome the AI task force, what I also did, I said, I have my vision of the future for Jamaica as it relates to AI, and that we become a service center with related to AI, because we are creative, right? So I said, let me paint 3 quick scenes, and I'm going to just clip out a little bit. That if Jamaica chooses to become an AI services provider, scene 1, the Jamaican AI-enabled professional, teachers, nurses, accountants, customer service teams with AI support that handles the routine so people focus on judgment, empathy, and quality. Productivity rise, earnings rise, confidence rise, not because we're replacing the people, because we're augmenting and upgrading the people, connected to the question earlier around teaching to what you said earlier about teaching. Second, the Jamaican AI-powered public service. Imagine applying for a birth certificate, a business registration, a permit or a benefit, and experience is fast, transparent, and fair. No endless back and forth, no mystery delays, just a government that feels like a modern service organization, secure, data-driven, and citizen-centered. AI becomes the engine of a better delivery with strong governance so trust is protected. And then scene 3, Jamaica as a regional AI services hub. Picture teams in Kingston, Montego Bay, Christiana, Portmore, exporting skills in data governance, cybersecurity and AI assurance, processing automation, training, and sector solutions for tourism, agriculture, logistics, and finance. In that Jamaica, made in Jamaica, does not only mean a product, it means capability, it means services, it means exportable expertise. It is a future worth building. So that was my concept around, connected to what Coty said a while ago with respect to where can we go if we choose to lead with this thing.
Thank you. We have a last question. Sorry, go ahead. An impact. Okay, sorry.
Good afternoon. Nice conversation. And I'm loving the scene painted just now, scene 2, public sector efficiency. Having
Turned it off when you press the button.
So, as a public sector employee at the Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, one of our vision is to utilize technology to make sure that our citizens get better access to justice. Well, you're talking about the readiness assessment and where we are and how we're moving forward with the with the governance structure. In a digital literacy survey some years ago, it was unearthed that we are not prepared to move forward because we don't understand the basic things that make us ready while having the guardrails in place. So it means that we need to have the digital literacy, which is some foundations in cybersecurity, which people don't want to participate in. So my question for the team here, beautiful panel, and the great thought that has gone into this is, how are we going to pair the AI readiness for the population with the the security conscious framework that they need to have in place, we need to have in place, so that we're able to maximize and not misuse the technology that we have at our fingertips. In particular application to the public sector worker who is using AI the wrong way already without the data governance structure in place.
Once you have the word data privacy, cybersecurity, and all those things in there, it's always hard. It's difficult. A number of us who've been in the industry for a while have been out there talking about the importance of data protection and cybersecurity for decades. And every single week, there's an issue with somebody clicking on the wrong link, or somebody just out there with their phone talking about all of their private business and walking up and down the whole of the house that they live in or the neighborhood, and they're pushing out their own data for what? I don't know, for clicks, for giggles, for likes. It's a hard balance. But it's a balance that, I'm the former chair of the Data Protection Oversight Committee for Government. It's hard because of a wide range of reasons, and I love what Prof. What you ended the conversation a while ago.
Church.
So have to include the church, right? It has to be involved, because where was knowledge coming from 1,000 years ago? The nobleman and the clergyman, right? The prophet, as was said. So trying to build this trust in a balance of the government plus the user, the citizen, it's the heavy push up the rock, the heavy push, that pushing that big boulder up the hill that we're all doing. I don't know if you have an easier answer.
So the way I look at things is collaboration. So it can't be that a civil servant behind a desk is writing policy for the nation. So we have to have stakeholder engagement. We have to look at all the pillars. Yes, data protection is critical. And yes, persons don't understand that what you post online, people can stalk you and follow you. There are certain, big people do it and take pictures of all sorts of places they are. If what you're doing is putting breadcrumbs. And if you want to be a target, you will be a target. So has to be an educational, role where persons, not only the young, but the old, everyone is educated on what you do and what you don't. And again, the guardrails must be there. China did the worst thing, but is it the worst thing by putting up the Iron Curtain and blocking all satellite feeds and curating their content? Why are they doing that? There's things like that. We have to just have those hard conversations. It's too much freedom to access something that we need to look at how we regulate. So these are some questions I have for persons.
Oh, sorry, Prof.
No, go ahead.
I think Prof. Waller, again, in one of his throwaway lines, which, shouldn't really be throwaway lines, actually focused us by mentioning quantum. And all of this thing about training our people and preparing our people, that's very important. I think quantum computing is going to scuttle all of that. And the reason I'm saying this, I actually believe we need to prioritize, as part of the defense mechanism, some investment in like Judas AI, because a human in the loop is clearly inadequate and insufficient. As we are talking about developing AI and deploying AI, we're going to have to focus a lot of investment in AI helping us to guardrail AI. My term for it now is kind of Judas AI for the time being. AI informing on AI. Because, one of the things you were asking us is, how are we going to distinguish between what is real and what is fake? We're already having a problem with that, with what is really nascent artificial intelligence. We're not at the singularity as yet.
If I was to just add to that conversation, data has always been the fuel for AI and whatever is happening just now. Now, AI competency has to include data competencies. And the interesting thing is, I'm sure the 6% of the population that is using AI, there is a lot of data leaks happening. How many employees are using AI in their workplace and uploading reports, doing things which are going all over the place? You don't even know where it's going. You're not using the subscription with the paid version, so you don't even have, that it's not, at least in the paid versions, they're telling you that they're not using your data. In the free versions, you don't even know that. So there is a lot of data leak which is already happening, and people are unaware of that, and hence the AI competency framework without a focus on data will be quite stupid and foolish, I would say, because data is the fuel, and we have, I just love working with data as a data scientist, and I think it's something we really need to focus on. And that is what people have also been doing in making AI smarter. With just generative AI is just one thing, but nowadays people have been fine-tuning their models with their own data. You can do, a RAG, some other kind of an implementation, which you're using your own knowledge sources, what I call the modern-day knowledge management system. So your local contextual data is important, and that we will have to include in any kind of AI competency framework that will be, I guess, implemented and rolled out to our entire population and public sector.
Pat?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. No, I just want to say I'm really proud to be a member of SALISES at this point. I want to congratulate the team, SALISES, for the very important work and for this kind of critical conversations which show the need for interdisciplinarity, which is what SALISES promotes. And I think, I don't know who are the members in the AI task force, but we certainly need to have that interdisciplinarity involved. And that's a preface to the question that I have in terms of the conversations we're having on AI. That have we been looking at issues of in relationship to eco-sustainability of AI technologies? Because that's a very important concern globally, that AI is having a very negative environmental footprint in terms of its energy usage, its water usage, in terms of e-waste, and related problems in terms of environmental security. As a small island country that has gone through back-to-back hurricanes, we need to be very clear that when we're advocating for technological innovations, we're doing it in a holistic way that recognizes the ways in which technological change, just like growth, has brought environmental consequences, disasters that we have to now be managing. And these are some of the issues I think that we need to keep in mind when we're looking at the adaptation process for things like AI becoming at the center of, in a sense, remaking what Jamaica can be and what Jamaicans can do in the future. So one of the issues I wanted to just put on the table is that we need to maintain environmental advocacy, environmental critical awareness of some of the ways in which this engine of innovation, some people call it disaster capitalism in other contexts because of its impact on planetary health. How does it impact on small states? How does it impact on our ability to maintain the technology in a sustainable way and advocate that we need 1.5 to stay alive? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pat. And thank you very much, everyone, for coming here today. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and I'm very happy to see that the interest is there, and I'm also very thankful to our partners, and I'm pretty much sure we're going to be doing a lot of work together. I am hopeful for the future. My hope is more on the Star Trek, Star Wars version of the future, not the Terminator version of the future. Because when Pat spoke about the energy consumption issue, I reflected on the reason why the Terminators needed to turn us into human batteries in the first place, because of energy. So I reflected on that particular moment. But as I said, I'm hopeful that will not happen, the Matrix. That will not happen. The Matrix and the Terminator, they were written by the same person. One was before, and the Matrix was after the Terminator, apparently. But we're talking about things that won't happen in our lifetime. Hopefully not in our lifetimes. And I'm very hopeful that as responsible human beings, that we will put the necessary guardrails in place to ensure that our species lives on. Cordel, I will leave here today remembering how you referred to the AI as a sentient other being. When you use the word creatures, I'll leave here today because it's a real, for those of us who have Claude and use Claude on a daily basis, it's sometimes, and it does happen, sometimes you forget that you're talking to an AI. It does happen because even when you use VR technology in the metaverse, if you're in there for a prolonged period of time, you forget that you're actually in a virtual reality, because the brain is very funny that way. So, now we're moving down into a particular space, unknown territory for many of us. I'm very happy to observe it. I'm very happy to archive and document it. It's going to be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to the next 5 years, to be quite frank. how human beings navigate this situation. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'd like to thank the sponsors. Again, I'd like to thank our SALISES staff. I don't even see Cara. Where's Cara Harris? Cara is at the back there. Our SALISES staff, our chief of staff, Richard, who is in charge of IT, and Justice and the team from PR, etc., and the other PR team that made themselves available today. Thank you very much, everyone, and we have some refreshments outside. Thanks again.